Chapter 705. In Blue Pole Star City, the last ray of light slowly fell, and stars appeared in the sky. It was already evening when the lights were lit. A luxurious shuttle slowly descended from the sky, breaking the silence of Huading Villa. After the door opened, Lan Bing and Yu Lingwei, dressed in formal business attire, came out together. Obviously, they had finished their work for the day and were returning home. Lan Bing was a moving scenery wherever she went, but this time, there was another beautiful scenery standing at the gate of the villa. The transit string stood quietly opposite her in an elegant windbreaker and knee-high boot. She had both a kind of leisure laziness and a generous elegance, which was completely different from her previous image of being high and mighty. A smile appeared on Lan Bing's face. "What a rare guest, Manager Ling. It's hard to see a big shot like you in this small place." The transit string smiled and walked over slowly. "I've been on vacation recently, so I came back to Blue Pole Star City to relax when I had nothing to do. I didn't expect to pass by here by chance and meet you. It's really fate." With Lan Bing's shrewdness, she would never believe her words. First of all, the fact that the transit string came here alone was very telling. This person usually went out with a retinue of people, and her secretary and bodyguards never left her side. However, Lan Bing didn't notify her through the group's official channels and appeared at the door of her private house on time. There were many reasons behind this. Lan Bing turned her head and said, "Sister Wei, you go back first. I want to talk to Manager Ling alone." Yu Lingwei also saw the knack, but she hesitated and said, "Manager Lan, Secretary Ding is not with you recently." "About your safety," Lan Bing smiled and said, "It's okay. Manager Ling is the CEO of the Xinghong headquarters. He won't embarrass me, a small person in charge of the Blue Moon branch of Xinghao." The transit string smiled and said, "Manager Lan, you must be joking. I'm really here to relax." Yu Lingwei looked at the transit string and then at Lan Bing. Lan Bing smiled confidently, so Yu Lingwei got back into the shuttle car. It wasn't until the shuttle lifted off and left that the transit string showed an apologetic look. "I'm sorry for my sudden visit. I should have informed you in advance." Lan Bing smiled even more happily. "Don't mention it. I'm really honored that Manager Ling is willing to visit my humble home. If Manager Ling doesn't mind, please come in." "Humble abode?" The transit string smiled meaningfully. "Miss Lan, if your Huading number 2 is my humble abode, then the other private mansions are all thatched hut." She suddenly changed her address to Miss Lan. Lan Bing was also well aware of the knack. The senior executives of large groups often tried not to call each other by official title when they were discussing in order to get closer to each other. It could be seen that the transit string didn't come with bad intentions. There must be something to discuss. The two walked side by side into the lotus pond in the courtyard. Looking at the waterside pavilion and all kinds of beautiful scenery, the transit string couldn't help but exclaim. It's said that this used to be the mansion of the young master of Tianheng, but after Miss Lan worked in the Blue Moon branch, young master Yu bought it. Today I come in and see it. It really lives up to its reputation. It's a real lotus pond and a beautiful lake." Lan Bing smiled and said, "Miss Ling, I'm just working for someone." The transit string asked meaningfully, "Is this a fairy tale of a prince and Cinderella?" Other people definitely wouldn't dare to ask such a question, but the transit string was different. Her status was there, so Lan Bing couldn't say anything. She sighed faintly and said, "Anjia is too busy. He rarely comes here." The transit string stared at her closely, determined not to miss any expression on her face. "With all due respect, Miss Lan, the relationship between you and young Master Yu is generally not very optimistic." This was the truth. Lan Bing knew that Yu Anjia was the young master of Xinghao Group after all. He was a rich and powerful young master. Although Lan Bing also had the raw capital of a woman, she was born in the grassroots and her background was too weak. This didn't mean that she wasn't worthy of him, but if something big happened to Xinghao Group, as Yu Anjia's other half, she might not be able to withstand the crisis. In fact, this wasn't the first time she had experienced this kind of thing. She had experienced it in Haitian group before, but Chu Ming Liang, Chu Yifeng, and the others were all played to death by her. To be precise, Chu Yifeng was killed by her, and Chu Ming Liang was killed by her through Ding Meng. Lan Bing didn't argue. She turned her head and said with a smile, "Miss Ling, you have many suitors, but you have never been involved in any scandals. I admire this." The transit string was already prepared for this and immediately explained jokingly, "Maybe my standards are too high?" Lan Bing was amused. "I heard that the young master of Tianheng is your loyal fan. The CEO of Tianheng even asked someone to matchmake with CEO Ling." The transit string smiled. "You have a good source of information. There is indeed such a thing. Young Master Jing is indeed outstanding, a dragon among men, but his personality is still a little weak." Lan Bing also smiled. "Could it be that Miss Ling likes someone with a strong personality?" The transit string shook her head and said, "Whether a man is strong or not is not determined by his personality. You must know that a man's strength is usually related to his strength." Lan Bing pondered and said, "Mr. Jing Haodong's strength shouldn't be too bad. After all, he is a major general in the Federation military." The transit string smiled in surprise. "Your gossipy heart is even thicker than mine," Lan Bing said happily. "Don't women talk about these things when they are together? It's just like when men talk about women." The transit string pondered and said, "Haodong is actually not bad, but I keep feeling that there is something missing. As for what it is, I can't tell." Lan Bing smiled. "It seems that your standards are really high. Looking at the young talents in the Federation, I'm afraid that none of them can catch your eye." The transit string smiled and shook her head. "That's not necessarily true. I have my eyes on one person, but he is a little different." Lan Bing said in surprise, "I am also very curious about someone who can make Miss Ling look at him in a different light." The transit string stared at her and said word by word, "This is your subordinate, Ding Meng, Secretary Ding." The real purpose of her trip was to leak information about Ding Meng to Lan Bing in another way. This was a very important part of her plan. If she couldn't open this loophole, then the rest of her plan would be useless. Lan Bing smiled and said, "Miss Ling's taste is really unique. Just Ding Meng's height doesn't match your devilish figure, does it?" This was also the truth. Ding Meng was thin and weak, and he was only 1.7 meters tall. According to the Federation's standards, he was the shortest among men. Lan Bing and the transit string were both tall beauties. When they put on their heels, they were almost 1.8 meters tall. Therefore, if they walked in front and Ding Meng walked behind them, then it was indeed a true portrayal of a leader and a secretary. The transit string stopped smiling and sighed deeply. Secretary Ding's appearance is indeed very ordinary. It doesn't matter if a man's appearance is ordinary. Strength is very important, Lan Bing said in a low voice. "There are a lot of battle saints in the Xing Hao group and the Xing Hong group. Ding Meng is just one of them." The transit string looked at her meaningfully. "But Secretary Ding's speed of growth is unique. Miss Lan, how much do you know about Secretary Ding's true strength?" At this moment, the two had reached the end of the bluestone road in the corridor beside the pool. Lan Bing didn't answer her question. Instead, she said, "Miss Ling, it's not my style to stand outside and chat. Why don't we talk inside?" The transit string smiled. "Then I'll have to trouble you." The living facilities on the first floor of the villa seemed simple, but the functions were actually very advanced. As soon as Lan Bing came in, the light automatically lit up, the air circulation system pushed out warm air, and the humidity was automatically adjusted, creating a comfortable feeling of returning home. Lan Bing habitually took off her suit jacket, revealing a white blouse. Her graceful curves were faintly discernible, making her even more attractive. The transit string also took off her windbreaker. She was wearing a black knitted blouse underneath. Her curves were also amazing, not inferior to Lan Bing's at all. If other men were present, they would definitely be attracted to these two. Usually, their clothes were very tight. At this moment, their hidden charm was even more mature. The transit string looked at Lan Bing and smiled. Speaking of which, it's strange. Your place gives me a feeling that I haven't felt in a long time. I suddenly feel hungry. Lan Bing smiled. Miss Ling, what would you like to eat? I'll get the butler to prepare it. The transit string said with a smile that wasn't a smile. The AI butler's food does look, smell, and taste good, but it doesn't feel like it's cooked with care. In other words, she wanted Lan Bing to cook dinner herself. This was impossible under normal circumstances. Unexpectedly, Lan Bing agreed with a smile. Miss Ling, my culinary skills are very ordinary. I'm afraid it won't satisfy you. The transit string smiled. Culinary skills don't matter if it's good or bad, but whether or not you put in the effort. You came because of its reputation, so you can't go back disappointed, right? Lan Bing stared at her and nodded silently. Since Miss Ling has the heart, then I'll do it. There was a small door behind the screen on the west side of the hall. After opening it, there was an exquisite and small multifunctional kitchen. There was a dazzling variety of things. Lan Bing had already put on an apron and rolled up her sleeves. She took out some simple ingredients from the freezer. Just by looking at these ingredients, the transit string knew what kind of dinner Lan Bing was going to make. It should be egg fried rice, 3 delicacies tofu, mushroom fried chicken, and steamed sea bass. Lan Bing praised. Miss Ling is indeed an expert. The transit string also praised, Miss Lan, you're the real expert. The two of them were pure natural goddesses. They paid extra attention to their health. Due to the excessive amount of social activities, their diet was even more strict. This dinner was clearly light and healthy, which suited the transit string's appetite. It was obvious that Lan Bing was a very attentive person. Chapter 706. Dinner was not ready yet, but the kitchen was already overflowing with aroma. Lan Bing stood beside the cupboard, carefully peeling a piece of potato with a delicate knife. The transit string did not disturb her. She just watched her cut the vegetables with interest. Miss Lan, I'm really impressed by you again. Lan Bing turned her head curiously. Oh! The transit string stepped forward with a smile, rolled up her sleeves, picked up a knife, and carefully cut the green onions. Lan Bing was surprised to find that the transit string's hands were not only steady, but her knife skills were also quite skilled. In fact, she was not inferior to her. The knife skills used in cooking were completely different from the knife skills used by martial artists. To some extent, the knife skills used in cooking were far more difficult than the knife skills used in martial art. The knife skills used by martial artists were nothing more than a combination of speed, strength, and direction, aiming to defeat the enemy. The knife skills used in cooking were more about balance, meticulous, and focused, like an art. Obviously, the transit string was someone who had practiced. Lan Bing laughed self-deprecatingly. I'm really sorry. I thought that a lady from a prestigious family like you would rarely enter the kitchen. It seems that I'm shallow. The transit string smiled as she cut the green onions. When I was young, after a tiring day, the happiest thing was to enjoy the egg fried rice my mother made with her own hands. I will never forget the taste in my memory. When she said this, the transit string's expression was full of nostalgia for the past, but also seemed to be filled with endless sighs. Lan Bing stared at her. She really could not see through the woman in front of her. She and the transit string had something in common, and that was that they understood men too well. However, the difference between her and the transit string was that she did not understand women, while the transit string understood women very well. The transit string seemed to know what she was thinking and took the initiative to explain with a smile. I said that I came to Blue Pole Star City this time to relax. Although the exchanges and conflicts between the groups make everyone stand on different sides, it does not affect the personal relationship between us. Lan Bing smiled. I hope so. For her, it was necessary to rely on Yu Anjie and win over Ding Meng, but there was no need for her to offend someone as powerful as the transit string, especially such a beautiful woman whom she enjoyed getting along with. Dinner was soon served on the table. Although the dishes were simple, the two of them had a good appetite. A plate of tofu, a plate of fish, 2 plates of chicken, and a small bowl of fried rice. Transit String finished all of it. Seeing that he still wanted more, Lan Bing opened a bottle of red wine. Transit String sighed with satisfaction as she held her goblet. Before, I didn't think highly of you and young Master Yu, but now my opinion has changed a lot. Miss Lan, your cooking skills are enough to keep any man's stomach. Lan Bing smiled. You flatter me. That's because Miss Ling is a guest today. If you were the owner of this place, I wouldn't dare to embarrass myself at all. Besides, I only know how to cook these simple dishes. Transit String said seriously, that's not true. The simpler something is, the harder it is to cook. Take this egg fried rice for example. Do you want to say that there's any skill involved in it? Actually, there's no skill involved. However, some people can cook dishes that are very appetizing, and some people can't eat them. At the very least, I ate 3 bowls of your egg fried rice in a row. What kind of good food haven't I eaten before? At the very least, your dinner today was unforgettable. Lan Bing pondered, as if she was savoring the meaning of her words. Maybe it's because you're with the right person that you have an appetite, right? Transit String finally revealed her unique sly smile. Do you know why I came to visit you today? Lan Bing said, I'd like to hear the details. Transit String said meaningfully, because we might be the same kind of people. Lan Bing asked curiously, oh? Transit String said, from your skillful cooking skills, I can tell that you lived a hard life when you were young. Although your hands are well maintained, there are still calluses between your fingers. Not only did you have to go out to make a living, but you also had to do the housework when you came home. Lan Bing remained silent and didn't answer. Her childhood was too far away from her. It was indeed a hard time, but she was hard-working, simple, happy, and full of hope for the future. It was completely different from now. Transit String sighed. Actually, I was the same. Back then, I had to carry the spinach that I picked from the mountains to the town to sell. After working hard for a day, I looked forward to eating my mother's egg fried rice. Although it was just a small dish, it was the happiest thing for me every day. Lan Bing looked at the other party in shock. She never thought that the usually high and mighty Transit String would have such a past. I heard that Boss Ling has a total of 4 wives. I always thought it was just a rumor, Lan Bing asked carefully. Transit String shook her head. You're wrong. He has a total of 5 wives. My mother was his 5th wife. Lan Bing knew that there were many grudges between rich and powerful families. It seemed that Transit String also had an unknown past when she was young. She asked carefully again, Is your mother doing well? Transit String's face was expressionless. She died 52 years, 7 months, and 3 days ago. Lan Bing hurriedly said, I'm sorry. Transit String waved her hand. It's okay. It's normal to get sick and die. She was saying that it was normal, but in reality, it was very abnormal. Ling Xingxian was not even 60 years old, and her mother had died 52 years ago. In other words, Ling Xingxian had lost her family when she was very young. Lan Bing frowned. Why are you telling me this? Ling Xingxian sipped a mouthful of wine and sighed, because I know the price a lonely woman must have to pay to get to where she is today. Lan Bing said seriously, I'm still different from you. Transit String nodded. I know. After all, I have the advantage of Starbao Group. You had nothing at that time. You started from scratch. Lan Bing shook her head and said, I didn't start from scratch in the true sense. Transit String said, I also know that you once stayed in Haitian Group for a long time. Lan Bing's experience was no secret to big shots like Transit String. As early as when she and Yu Anjie confirmed their relationship, the Yu family had investigated her past. She believed that Transit String must have paid attention to this information. Lan Bing suddenly smiled. Miss Ling, I really don't understand. Why are you suddenly so interested in me? Transit String slowly stood up, as if she was thinking about what to say. After pacing back and forth a few times, she slowly said, Ding Meng left Blue Pole Star City a few months ago, right? Lan Bing immediately became vigilant. Transit String continued, Ding Meng secretly went to Beidou. If I'm not wrong, he went there to investigate the so-called sea-level dark matter residue of your Xinghao group. There was no need to deny this kind of thing in front of Transit String. If she dared to say it, she must have done her homework in advance. Lan Bing replied decisively, Yes. Transit String showed a sly smile again. Are you wondering? Why did Ding Meng suddenly lose contact with us after he went to Beidou, and no news came back? Lan Bing's expression remained unchanged. Maybe you know more than I do. Transit String glanced at her and said leisurely, Ding Meng found the source and stole the energy source. He killed more than a dozen respected battle saints of the Star Rainbow Group, seriously injured my elder sister, and kidnapped Miss Eisen of the Rainbow family. Now his whereabouts are unknown. Even I don't know where he went. I heard that he ran away with a sect master of the Devouring Realm. This information was definitely not accessible to the higher-ups of Xinghao Group, including those at Yu Anjie's level, so one could imagine the storm in Lan Bing's heart. However, Lan Bing's expression remained cold and indifferent. Just based on this point, Transit String's eyes were filled with admiration. This was the calmness that a person who did great things should have. Sure enough, Lan Bing said in a deep voice, Miss Ling, can I take this as a sign that Star Rainbow Group and Xinghao Group are about to have a big head-on conflict? Or is this a friendly reminder from you out of sympathy for a woman? Transit String waved her hand and said, Ding Meng killed people, but that's not the point. The point is that the energy source is in his hands. Xinghao Group wants this energy source, but Xinghao doesn't know about it. The point is that you want it too. Lan Bing frowned. I don't understand what you mean. Transit String stared at her. You should understand, and you should understand better than most of us, what kind of energy source that is. Lan Bing said suspiciously, Oh? Transit String said, Why was Chu Yifeng sent to the K8 series by the Chu family back then? The K8 series was the black gold base on the dead silent star. Why did Ding Meng suddenly transform into an origin energy user? Later on, the dead silent star experienced a great catastrophe. Why did you and Ding Meng return to the black gold base? Later on, why did Chu Mingliang and the others from the Haitian group suddenly appear underground on the Bramble Planet? Were all these events just coincidences? Lan Bing knew that she could not hide it any longer. She could only sigh. Yes, divine light energy. Transit String laughed again. Miss Lan, although you are very cautious, there are many suspicious points about you. However, your beauty and aura cover up these suspicious points, so no one investigated you in detail. Lan Bing's face became expressionless. So you investigated me in detail? Transit String said seriously, You have been with the Chu family for many years. As far as I know, Chu Yifeng respects you as if you were a celestial being. He does not dare offend you in the slightest. Of course, this can be explained by his obsession with you. Based on your performance in the Haitian group, you would have become Chu Yifeng's wife sooner or later. However, not only did you not, that old man Chu Mingliang even wanted to take you as his concubine. Lan Bing said, What can this prove? Transit String said, These are all very normal things. Men are aggressive carnivores. How can they not be tempted by beauty? However, the problem is that after Chu Mingliang announced that he wanted to take you as his concubine, Chu Mingliang and Chu Yifeng mysteriously died. There are many witnesses to Chu Mingliang's death, so this cannot be fake. However, what about Chu Yifeng? How did he die? Lan Bing's heart skipped a beat, but she was still very calm. Many people died in the Battle of the Droplet on the Bramble Planet. He was no exception. Even Ding Meng was sucked into the wormhole. Chapter 707. The Transit String Side. Yes, many people died at that time, but Chui Feng did not die on the expedition because he did not appear from the beginning to the end. So the only explanation is that he died on the Haitian group's exploration ship. Lan Bing could only sigh in admiration. This was not the first time she had experienced the transit string's prowess. The transit string was always able to accurately find clues from the many disorderly fragments. The transit string sneered. Ding Meng had already been captured by you at that time, but then Ding Meng magically appeared on the expedition. Was Chui Feng being kind? Or was Chu Mingliang being merciful? How could he let him go? Lan Bing did not say anything. The transit string stared at her. The logical explanation is that you used Ding Meng to get rid of Chui Feng on the exploration ship. The reason is very simple. You did not want to marry into the Chu family because Chui Feng had harmed all your family members in order to get you. You had been holding back all this time, waiting for a good opportunity to get rid of him. The transit string had a strange expression again. But this guess is also not logical. You had clearly helped Ding Meng deal with Ding Meng time and time again. Logically speaking, Ding Meng should be your old rival. Why would he help you instead? There must be a secret behind this. At that time, Ding Meng's strength had already surpassed yours. He had Shenguang technology in his hands, and you had nothing to offer him to cooperate with you obediently. So, if I'm not wrong, you must have offered your first time to him for him to cooperate with you. No matter how good Lan Bing's temper was, she could not help but retort, nonsense. The transit string ignored her anger. Whether I'm talking nonsense or not, only you know in your heart. Lan Bing also stood up and stared at her. What exactly are you trying to say? The transit string continued. The second point of suspicion is that after Ding Meng returned to the Federation, I had not even figured out that Su Mengqing was Ding Meng in disguise, but you recruited Ding Meng before us. How do you know that Su Mengqing is Ding Meng? If you say that there is no love affair between the two of you, I will definitely not believe it. Lan Bing could not speak, but her face was already turning a little pale. Ling Xingxian said, You and young master you have been in a relationship for quite some time now. From what I know, Yuanjia is such a playboy, yet he has never touched you even once. However, even though you look so pure and innocent, you have already had a man. Lan Bing could not take it anymore. What makes you think that? The transit string looked at her again and sighed. Siolan, you really don't know how to act. Why can I tell? It's because I've had a man before. I had a man when I was 11 years old. He was an old man who was so ugly that it made people want to vomit. He only used a box of nutrient solution to get me and ravaged me for an entire night. Lan Bing was stunned again. She could not imagine such a thing happening. The transit string took another sip of wine. She looked a little dazed. Of course, I could have rejected him at that time. But if I had, I probably would not have made it through that night. I had to get that box of nutrient solution. Otherwise, I would have starved to death. Lan Bing sighed faintly. But you still survived. The transit string sneered again. So, as long as I come into contact with another woman, I can tell at a glance whether she has had a relationship with a man or not. Unfortunately, from the first day I met you, I knew that the man you had been with was not Yuanjia. Of course, I'm not interested in your private life. But since Ding Meng suddenly became your secretary, I knew that the situation was different. Lan Bing asked, What's the difference? The transit string said, You're on the same side. Your goal is Shenguang energy. You want to use the powerful resources of Sheng Hao Group to get it. So, you're using Yuanjia and Sheng Hao Group. Lan Bing said, It's normal for men and women to use each other. The transit string said, But now that Ding Meng has angered Sheng Hao Group, do you think Sheng Hao Group can protect him? Or do you think you can protect him? It's true that the Yu family is protective of their own. You may also think that the senior management of Xing Hao Group will fight back against Xing Hong Group's anger. But let me tell you, the seniors Ding Meng killed this time are all old men who have been loyal to the Ling family for many years. My father and eldest sister will never let this go. Given your relationship with Yu Anjia, will he help you? Will he be able to? In other words, will he stand up for you? Are you and Ding Meng worth him standing up for you? These words were powerful and resonant. Every word hit Lan Bing's weak spot. She immediately fell into deep thought. Of course, she also knew very well that the transit string was not threatening her. She was just stating the facts. The transit string continued to add fuel to the fire. What's more, Yuanjia doesn't really trust you. The female secretary beside you is obviously spying on you. Even an outsider like me can see that, let alone others. So you're stuck in a difficult position. Ding Meng has disappeared without a trace. When the time comes, in the maelstrom of Xing Hao and Xing Hong Group's confrontation, you will be the first cannon fodder to be used by both sides. You won't be able to escape even if you want to. The hall suddenly fell silent. It was so quiet that they could almost hear each other's heartbeats. Both of them were thinking quickly, weighing the pros and cons. Lan Bing suddenly sighed. What about you? Why did you come to me? The transit string stared at her. If you really want me to reason, I always feel that a woman working hard to climb up the ladder is wrong. Although we know that this is a world dominated by men, it doesn't mean that women can't survive. Lan Bing stared at her. No, in my impression, you are a very powerful person in Xing Hong Group. You are different from your father and the other senior management. The transit string was a little surprised. Oh? How can I be different? Lan Bing said, if I can describe it, the open and secret struggle between Xing Hao Group and Xing Hong Group for many years is like a game of chess. The Ling family is the most important player on the chessboard, but you are not. No matter how you look, I know you are definitely not. The transit string said, that's quite a novel way to put it. Lan Bing stared straight at her. Every step you take is very careful. You look gentle, but in fact, you take risk. You are more like a chess player than a chess piece. The transit string sighed. To be able to get such an evaluation from you, it proves that I didn't misjudge you. To do big things, you naturally need a big picture. Similarly, to achieve the same goal, you also need like-minded people. Lan Bing calmed down. What do you need me to do? The transit string shook her head and said, you are wrong. As I said, I came to Blue Pole Star City this time simply to relax. It was fate that I met you. Not only do I admire you very much, but this dinner also left a deep impression on me. If you have free time, you can come to Saint Splendor to find me. I promise that I will personally cook for you. As she spoke, she put down the wine glass. With a flip of her finger, a glittering card appeared on the table. This kind of glittering business card was very high-end technology. Only those high-ranking people with great power could customize it. Once it was activated, no matter where that person was, the business card could automatically activate that person's wrist guard through the International Space Network and contact that person at any time, anywhere. Lan Bing picked up the business card. There were only 3 glittering letters in the glittering card. LXX, which was the abbreviation of transit string. Since the transit string had given her a personal business card, it proved that she trusted her very much. The transit string said seriously, no matter what happens in the future, I hope that our private relationship will not change. I will always have a door open for you. Remember, it is not the Starbao Group that has opened the door for you, but my personal sincerity to you. As she spoke, she slowly turned around. It is getting late and it is time to say goodbye. Thank you very much for your hospitality. I hope that I will have the opportunity to be a host in the future. By the way, one last friendly reminder for you. Ding Meng escaped from the Fertile Chalk Galaxy with the sect master of the Sevenfold Mountain family, Ling Yin. Lingyin has a nickname, she is called the Nine Serenities Devil. With a clang, the door was closed. The transit string had left, but Lan Bing still sat there without moving. She was covered in a dark cloud from head to toe. She had never felt so horrified before. She had always been conceited that she was the most outstanding one among the women, but now it seemed that she was wrong. This transit string was the most terrifying one. Even when she was under house arrest in the Haitian group, she didn't feel any fear. She wasn't even afraid of Ding Meng, who was extremely powerful. However, this Ling Xingxian gave her an unfathomable feeling. Lan Bing organized her thoughts again. She realized that the third miss of the Ling family was indeed an unpredictable character. Ever since the transit string appeared in the public eye, she had never shown her martial strength. She had always been working for the Starbao Group through gentle diplomatic means. However, if one looked closely, she would appear and disappear in the various projects and events of the Starbao Group. This was a person who could not be ignored. After thinking for a while, she took out another wristband from the bag on the sofa. This was her personal wristband. She would only use it to contact the people she trusted the most. However, when she held the wristband in her hand, she felt an inexplicable sadness. All these years, the only person who was truly worthy of her trust was Meng Yan. She had maintained an instinctive vigilance against everyone else. However, she also knew that although Meng Yan was on Ding Meng's side, there was another force behind Ding Meng. If she wanted to find Ding Meng now, she had to tell Meng Yan this information. If there was anyone who could find Ding Meng in the vast outer space, then that person could only be Meng Yan. Chapter 708. On planet Pandora V4, in the depths of the poisonous forest, the sharp and exquisite three-pronged spaceship was parked on the lawn. The divine Aero spaceship's entire body was translucent, icy blue in color. At this moment, only Xinjie was working in the command hall inside the spaceship. The rest of the people were cultivating in the induction cabin. Not long after, a new signal popped up on the communication channel. Xinjie quickly picked it up. The person on the light screen was the four-eyed man holding a mountain in his mouth. However, when he saw Xinjie, the four-eyed man was very obedient. "Brother Jie," Xinjie said, "how is it? Is there any news?" The four-eyed man said, "We found Sister Xia. Sister Xia is with Miss Liang Yi. Miss Iran from Blue Pole Star City has arranged for Long Feiyu to send them back." Xinjie was a little surprised. "They found Liang Yi?" The four-eyed man said, "But there is still no news of Brother Ding. We don't know where he is. The surprise attack and dragon-slaying groups have searched all over the world but have not found him. Sister Xia and the others are about to arrive at planet KV-303. Xinjie nodded and said, "Okay, I got it. Come over as soon as possible." After the communication was disconnected, Jean Tai walked in from the connection cabin. "Brother Xinjie, Sister Yen is back." Only then did Xinjie stand up from his seat. He knew that Meng Yan must have brought news of Ding Meng back. Moreover, she had returned directly to base V4, which meant that the matter was still very important. Otherwise, Meng Yan could have directly communicated with him. After thinking about it, Xinjie decisively woke Little Rascal and the others up. Currently, the Divine Aero spaceship's energy was very low, mainly because Little Rascal and the others were cultivating. Now, only Little Rascal, Xiao AI, and Dai Yi were lying in the induction cabin. The main reason he had brought Dai Yi to planet V4 was because of the lack of manpower. After all, Jean Tai and the others were not enough to build the base on planet V4. A group of people quickly gathered on the lawn outside the spaceship. Little Rascal and Xiao AI's appearance had not changed much, but Meng Yan could feel that their auras were very exaggerated from afar. Compared to the last time they met, their strength had increased by at least 4 or 5 levels. They were even faster than Ding Meng. Not to mention the two of them, even Dai Yi was now in high spirits. The luster in his eyes was even more dazzling, and the color around his eyes had become a lot more foggy. It was obvious that his strength was also increasing. He was at least at the warlord level. Meng Yan secretly thought that this divine light energy was indeed worthy of being a super technology of the great god civilization. Seeing that it was Meng Yan, Little Rascal hurried over to greet her. "Where's Ding Meng?" Meng Yan shook her head and said, "He is indeed missing. I cannot find him either. However, there is new news." Dai Yi was also a little anxious. Could something have happened? Meng Yan said, "According to Lil Bing, Mr. Ding Meng found the divine light energy, then killed more than 10 Battle Saint old monsters from the Star Rainbow Corporation, heavily injured Ling Xingqi, and kidnapped Izendel from the Rainbow family. In the end, he escaped with Sect Master Ling Yin of the Seven Mountain family." Xing's smiled bitterly. "There's nothing this little brat doesn't dare to do to actually cause such a big ruckus." Little Rascal said, "Is there no other news?" Meng Yan said, "The news I heard is that Mr. Ding Meng departed from planet Beidou and infiltrated the Star Rainbow Corporation's Tsujing base on planet Perry. In the end, he went to planet Poison Dragon in the Fertile Chalk system. Mr. Ding Meng was last seen on planet Poison Dragon. After that, there was no more news." Xing frowned and said, "That's not right. How did Lan Bing know about such a secret?" Meng Yan did not hide anything. A few days ago, the Star Rainbow Transit String personally visited her and told her this news. Little Rascal sighed. "Looks like we have to continue waiting." Xing pondered and said, "The ruckus this time is a little too big. In my opinion, KV-303's Green Arrow base can be retreated." Little Rascal asked curiously, "Why?" Xing said seriously, "That transit string was used to release a signal. In my opinion, the Star Rainbow Corporation won't be as quiet as before. They will definitely take revenge. Now that Ding Meng isn't here, I'm afraid they will make a move on the refugee camp." Most people knew that Ding Meng had a lot of friends in the refugee camp on planet KV-303. Moreover, Ding Meng had always cared about that place. If they wanted to take revenge on Ding Meng while Ding Meng was away, Green Arrow Base would be the best place to do so. Dai Yi couldn't help but say, "That can't be right? The Star Rainbow Corporation isn't an extreme pirate force after all. Do you think they would do something like pirates?" Xing's expression was grim. "They don't have to rob or kill. Just cutting off the surrounding supply lines will make life difficult for the captain, Yu Liang, and the others. Besides, Ding Meng killed a battle saint of the Star Rainbow Corporation. If more than 10 of our battle saints are killed, do you think we will let this go?" Meng Yan hesitated and said, "Do you want me to go and pick them up?" Xiao Ai suddenly said, "If that's the case, this place will become unsafe soon. You should know that the Star Rainbow Corporation once built a base on planet V9. If they want to search, they will be able to find this place." Xing said decisively, "We will fly deeper into the Pandora system and go to the Poison Barrier planet where the toxins are thicker. Jean Tai and the others have the technology to build a base there." Dai Yi hesitated and said, "If we retreat now, how will Ding Meng contact us if he returns?" Meng Yan said, "Miss Dai, don't worry. If Mr. Ding Meng returns, he will definitely meet up with Lil Bing. As long as he returns to Xinghao, we will be able to contact him." Xing shook his head and said, "He's not stupid. There's no way he would meet up with Lan Bing at this time. That would be selling his whereabouts. If I'm not wrong, he won't show up for a while. He is either in the Norse Empire or in the Devouring World." The Devouring World? Everyone was surprised. Dai Yi couldn't help but say, "The Federation and the Devouring World are like fire and water. Humans can't survive there at all." Meng Yan said, "Not necessarily. Mr. Ding Meng is immune to toxins and is very strong. He might be able to move around in the Devouring World. You should know that he is not an ordinary person." Xing nodded and said, "It is indeed possible. The key is that he escaped with the devouring world's sect master. We don't know what exactly happened in the Fertile Chalk Galaxy. What we need to do now is to find a relatively safe place to hide and not drag him down. Everyone nodded. Only Meng Yan was lost in thought. If things were really as Xinjie said, then Lan Bing was definitely under a lot of pressure. After all, on the surface, Ding Meng's identity was Lan Bing's secretary. Although the Xing Hao group and the Starbao group had always had small conflicts, they rarely had a big head-on conflict. This time, it was a big conflict in the standard sense. Hopefully, Mr. Ding Meng had gone in the direction of the Norse Empire. However, she didn't know Ding Meng as well as Xinjie. At this moment, in the depths of outer space, an ostrich-like star beast was quietly flying in the darkness. This beast had a pair of dark blue wings on both sides, and its whole body was covered with tentacles and claws. This was the devouring world's space weapon, the Void Spirit Ray. It was flying in the direction of the devouring world's headquarters behind the Zirital star field. It was the Poison Cloud Demon Sea star system that made the humans of the Federation pale. As the devouring world's spiritual beast, the Void Spirit Ray was actually an extremely complicated life form. After the devouring world's commander level and above people died, if conditions permitted, their bodies and souls would be collected and placed in the so-called Sacred Lake to be refined. With the help of all kinds of natural treasures, it would take a long time to evolve into a Void Spirit Ray. Although the Void Spirit Ray didn't have as many advanced technology systems as human starships, a single Void Spirit Ray was powerful enough to rival one or even several large fleets of the Federation. First of all, its blue outer skin was made of high-grade soft glow material. It was basically invulnerable to weapons, water, and fire. Furthermore, it could withstand space storms. Without sufficient firepower, human starships couldn't break its skin at all. Just this alone was intimidating. Secondly, its internal structure was purely made of the bones, flesh, and large organs of the exotic beast. There were a lot of spaces that could store all kinds of toxins and energy and accommodate different types of units. It didn't exist in a place like a command center. Everything was carried out by the sect master's consciousness. The Void Spirit Ray was equivalent to a strange fish in the universe. It wasn't easy to cultivate this kind of exotic beast, and it was very difficult for it to truly die. Therefore, it was very rare. Usually, only the masters above the sect master level would have one. This was both the advantage and disadvantage of the devouring world. The advantage was that they could go wherever they wanted, and the disadvantage was that they couldn't transport troops on a large scale, especially high-grade elite troops. 100 years ago, the devouring world launched an invasion war against the Holy Grail Federation, and the root cause of their failure was this. 30 Void Spirit Rays carried thousands of demon souls, elders, great elders, and sect masters, broke through the natural barrier of the Zeta 2 star field and launched a surprise attack on the Northern Horizon star system of the Holy Grail Federation. Wherever they went, corpses were everywhere, and poisonous clouds filled the sky. The Holy Grail Federation was caught off guard, resulting in the loss of a large amount of territory. After the Federation recovered from the shock, they quickly gathered reinforcements from everywhere, and at the same time, bought a large amount of war supplies from the Norse Empire, and engaged in an unprecedentedly fierce battle with the devouring world army. To put it bluntly, they were exchanging people for people. The reason why the Federation adopted such a cruel tactic was that they sacrificed the frontline soldiers to buy time for the fleets behind them to gather. Once the front line fell into a stalemate, the devouring world would be powerless, because the Void Spirit Rays had to pay a huge price to transport their elite troops back and forth. After a few rounds of battle, the Federation suddenly gathered more than 200 large interstellar fleets, including 30 special fleets and 5 super fleets, and pushed back with an unstoppable force. In this war of the century, 26 Void Spirit Skates in the devouring realm were turned into cannon fodder, and the remaining 4 were seriously injured. All the ground troops were wiped out, and none of the warriors under the Great Elder survived. At the same time, 13 patriarchs had also fallen. This was a real blow to the vitality of the Saint Brilliance Federation in the truest sense of the word. This war had also exchanged for 100 years of peace for the Saint Brilliance Federation. When the Frogman Kingdom saw that the devouring world had suffered such heavy losses, they secretly sent 3 expeditionary forces across the fertile chalk system, wanting to take down the poison cloud demon sea in one fell swoop. In the end, the Norse Empire took advantage of this opportunity and sent a large number of troops across the fertile chalk system, beating the Frogman Kingdom so badly that they could not raise their head. In order to stabilize the situation in the fertile chalk system, the Frogman Kingdom had no choice but to call back the expeditionary forces. After that battle, the 4 families understood one thing: it was best not to send out troops rashly. Everyone was in a state of mutual restraint, and whoever made the first move would be unlucky. Of course, the devouring world and the Frogman Kingdom also saw how terrifying the human world was once united, so from then on, everyone played on their own. Chapter 709. The interior of the Void Spirit Ray was mostly liquid, which was poisonous mucus. The huge bones of the alien beast separated different spaces. Generally speaking, the structure was not much different from a starship. However, the passages were filled with rivers mixed with toxins, the walls were covered with animal meat with various patterns, and the rooms were filled with all kinds of strange plants. There were all kinds of strange smells in the air, almost a mixture of fragrance and stench. Therefore, normal humans would not be able to adapt to the environment inside the Void Spirit Ray's body. Ding Meng had released the origin of heat in Isendale's body, so her origin was imprisoned. In addition, she was half naked and was dragged all the way by Ding Meng. After entering the exotic beast's body, she vomited a lot. In the end, she even vomited all the jaundiced water. Lingyin was not bad. She had prepared a relatively dry room for Ding Meng. At least the room was big enough. There was no pus in it, only some green plants for decoration. Your room is very retro. Ding Meng looked around. Lingyin was a bit unhappy. This is a room that only the leader is qualified to live in. You should be satisfied. Look at this bed. Looking in the direction of her finger, Ding Meng found a large lotus leaf growing in the corner. Is this a bed? Ding Meng was curious. Lingyin said, "Try it and you will know." Ding Meng immediately lay down, and the lotus leaf suddenly tightened and wrapped him inside. Ding Meng discovered that the lotus leaf was secreting a kind of crystal-clear liquid, which looked a bit like dewdrops. When these dewdrops came into contact with his skin, he quickly sensed that this was a very strange poison. It made people feel refreshed and their minds were exceptionally clear. It had a very good effect on refreshing one's mind. It must be known that a poison that could make an expert like Ding Meng feel effective was not an ordinary tonic. It was enough to show how rare this bed was. Of course, the premise was that it was built on a person like him who was immune to toxins. Not bad. Ding Meng crawled out of the bed again. Lingyin was proud. How is it? Do you feel good? My bed has many effects. It can regulate various hormones in the body and secrete them according to your need. Ding Meng said, "It is indeed different from the human world in many ways. It does look different, but the principle is similar." As Lingyin spoke, she opened up a tree stump by the wall. It was filled with all sorts of exotic flowers and fruit. What is this? Ding Meng was even more curious. Lingyin said, "This is my personal collection. From a human's point of view, this thing is called a freezer. It can store some supplies. Do you want some?" She casually picked up a fruit. This fruit looked a little like a peach, but also a little like a compressed steamed bun. Its entire body was suffused with a gloomy green luster. At a glance, one could tell that it was a highly toxic item. Lingyin opened her mouth and swallowed one. She chewed it with great relish, oil dripping from her mouth. She had a look of enjoyment on her face. As she ate it, The blue light around her body became even brighter. It was clearly a great tonic. This is an immortal fruit that I obtained from the sacred lake of the devouring realm. It is very nourishing. As long as your injuries are not too serious, you can recover in an instant, Ling Yin explained. Ding Meng said, I know this thing. It is called the green glow. Ling Yin was a little surprised. How did you know? Ding Meng sighed. I once wandered with an elder of the devouring realm for a while. He told me a lot about the things that you plundered in the devouring realm. Ling Yin asked curiously, so you have interacted with people from the devouring realm before? What is the elder's name? Ding Meng said, his name is Shuiyu Mountain. He has been dead for a long time. His spiritual body is attached to an artificial body. Unfortunately, I could not bring him back from the Divine War Starfield. Ling Yin was stunned. Shuiyu Mountain is a member of my sevenfold mountain clan. He is my disciple and grand disciple. Ding Meng was also stunned. What a coincidence! Ling Yin said, many years ago, in order to find the divine light energy, I sent many disciples and grand disciples out. He was one of them. After hearing her explanation, Ding Meng suddenly understood. Didn't Shuiyu Mountain and Feng Jianjin fight for the divine light energy on the expedition for dozens of years? Ding Meng couldn't help but send a telepathic thought to Ling Yin, telling her about Shuiyu Mountain and Feng Jianjin. Ling Yin was a little emotional. I didn't expect this grand disciple to be so loyal to me. As a spiritual body, he fought with Feng Jianjin and the water droplet for dozens of years. He is indeed a disciple of my sect. I will go to the Divine War Starfield and bring him back personally. Ding Meng said, didn't you say that your void spirit ray has been dormant on the poison dragon star for many years and is running out of energy and food? The Divine War Starfield is almost 1,000 light-years away from here. Can you fly there? Ling Yin also looked distressed. Don't mention it. My spiritual beast is very weak now. It can't even fly through a wormhole. Let alone going to the Divine War Starfield, it will be difficult for it to even go back to the devouring world. We can only go to the Zeratal Starfield first. Ding Meng was also a little depressed. We can't use short-distance teleportation or wormhole flight. How long will it take to reach the Zeratal Starfield at this speed? Ling Yin said, it will take at least 2 to 3 years. If you are bored, you can cultivate in this room. There are many things here. You can use them as you wish. There are also many supplies and daily necessities in the space leaf. Ding Meng glanced at the colorful and strange plants around. They were all poisonous things. It was not that he couldn't use them, but his main goal was to refine the divine light essence. If he absorbed the poison, it would be a deviation from his main goal. Too slow. Ding Meng judged. Ling Yin said helplessly, I don't have a choice. Spiritual beasts usually eat and drink the holy water from the sacred lake. It takes a long time to digest it and turn it into energy. Only then can it travel through space. Do you think it's easy for me to go to the fertile chalk star system? Just the preparation of the spiritual beast will take a few years. Now we have to take a detour. If we run into the Federation's patrol fleet and have a big fight, we might have to postpone the trip for a few years. Ding Meng was a little impatient. Is there no way to speed up? Ling Yin's eyes flashed. It's not that there is no way. Didn't that senior give you the divine light essence? Once the spiritual beast obtains a part of the divine light essence, it can be converted into an energy pool. Then our speed will be greatly increased. Ding Meng looked at her. After beating around the bush for so long, this is what you want? Ling Yin felt guilty under his gaze. She hurriedly waved her hand and said, How would I dare be disrespectful to that divine light senior? Besides, with your current strength, how can I be your opponent? Besides, my grand disciple was saved by you. The sooner we reach the Zeratal Starfield, the sooner I can go back to the devouring realm, and the sooner you can go back to the Federation. There is no other way. Ding Meng thought for a while. Since things had come to this, there was no other way. Where is the energy pool you mentioned? I'll take you there, Ling Yin replied. Then she looked at Isendale, who was curled up on the ground. What about this woman? Ding Meng waved his hand. Don't worry about her. Let her stay here. Ling Yin saw that Isendale was very weak. She guessed that Isendale had vomited on the way here. Ling Yin took out an orange nut from the tree stump and stuffed it into Isendale's mouth. Isendale seemed to know that Ling Yin did not want her to die. Regardless of whether the nut was poisonous or not, she opened her mouth and swallowed it. She fainted as soon as she swallowed it. Ding Meng frowned. I remember that she is also immune to poison. How could she be knocked out so quickly? What did you feed her? Ling Yin's pupils kept flashing, and her expression was a little unnatural. Nothing. It's just a fruit to replenish her strength. Let her rest for a while to prevent her from causing trouble. Ding Meng stared at her suspiciously. I have to warn you. Don't play any tricks. Lead the way. Let's go. Although he did not have a good impression of Isendale, he did not have any bad intentions either. Previously, he was mainly angry that Isendale had taken the opportunity to steal his things. She could not win against him, but she was still stubborn. However, Ding Meng had been tortured by her along the way, so his anger had long dissipated. Although Isendale was Ling Xingqi's best friend, she was still a member of the human world. It would be a pity if she was poisoned to death by Ling Yin's fruit. Ding Meng thought that if he really wanted to kill this woman, he would rather melt her. Of course, Ding Meng had his own principles. As long as there was no deep hatred, there was no need to be so extreme. Isendale was a battle saint of the Federation. If he really wanted to do this, he would have to carefully consider the consequences. He had already pissed off the Starbow Corporation. He could not add another strong enemy, the Rainbow family. The more enemies one had, the better. Similarly, the more friends one had, the better. After Ling Yin led Ding Meng around the interior of the Void Spirit Ray, they finally arrived at a very strange space. This space was like a super furnace. It was divided into 3 levels, the top, the middle, and the bottom. Each level was 20 meters tall, and the entire furnace was supported by 16 giant bones. Ding Meng and Ling Yin stood on the edge of the fern moss on the top level. Looking down, there was a colorful stream of light at the bottom level. This stream of light was actually a Tai Chi 8 trigrams diagram. Its aura was exactly the same as Ling Yin's. In fact, Ding Meng was no stranger to the Tai Chi 8 trigrams. This was passed down from the ancient human world. Its meaning was that everything and phenomena in the universe contained yin and yang, as well as the 2 sides of the surface and the interior. This law of matter was used by the devouring world, which proved that Ling Yin was right. The devouring world was probably another form of the human world. According to Ling Yin's explanation, this was the so-called energy pool. It was the heart of the Void Spirit Ray. Like the reactor of the starship, it provided an endless supply of energy for the entire starship. Therefore, to inject energy into the Void Spirit Ray, one had to come to the core. Ling Yin muttered something, and her eyes flashed with blue light. Ding Meng immediately felt that Ling Yin had established a strange connection with the energy pool. It was as if 2 psychic strings of the same form had merged together. After a long time, Ling Yin softly shouted at the energy pool, Senior 7 Kills, are you there? Ling Yin wants to see you. Chapter 710. As soon as Ling Yin spoke, the Tai Chi flowing light immediately gushed out blue thread-like streams of energy. These streams of energy actually turned into a floating, blurry ghost face in the air. This face looked like a human face, but upon closer inspection, it looked like a cat's face. It had one thing in common with Ling Yin, and that was that it only had eyes and no pupils. The pupils of the eyes were pitch black. Seeing this ghost face in the depths of the furnace, even Ding Meng, who had always been brave, felt his heart tremble. The ghost face spoke, Sect Master, why did you call my source spirit? Ling Yin introduced, "This is Ding Meng, Mr. Ting." The ghost face looked at Ding Meng and his voice was filled with surprise. "A divine light martial artist?" Ding Meng was also a bit surprised. "You know about the divine light energy?" The ghost face was silent for a while before saying, "I met him 100 years ago and had a deep impression of him. I never thought that we would meet again." Ling Yin said with a serious expression, "He wants to inject the divine light energy into the energy pool to help you quickly reach Zeta 2 star field." The ghost face respectfully lowered his head. "Thank you for your grace." Ding Meng nodded. Injecting the energy pool was not a problem right now. The difficult part was how to use the energy in the warehouse. Ding Meng opened his palm and the divine light singularity appeared in his palm with a xiao sound. It instantly released a strong light that turned into a cross-shaped star that lit up the entire furnace space. However, this was Ling Yin and the ghost face's vision. Ding Meng's vision was different. Just like when Xiao AI brought out the true source red crystals, Ding Meng's vision had a simple light screen in front of him. There were all kinds of images on it, which were the energy stored in the warehouse. Once he decided to use them, he could use the singularity and his divine sense to bring them out. Ding Meng took a closer look. First of all, there was the label of the divine light crystals. They looked like sparkling and translucent crystals. The label indicated that there were 10 of them, and each of them contained enough energy to completely restore 20 Mao Xing generals. If it was converted into energy index, it meant that each divine light crystal would not be less than 300 billion points. If it was converted into energy, it would be an astronomical figure that was impossible to estimate. It was obvious why Ling Xingqi was willing to pay such a high price to obtain the divine light energy. Just these 10 crystals were enough to make all the old monsters in the Federal Empire go crazy. Next was the ruby symbol of the true source red crystals. There were 5 of them, and Ding Meng knew how powerful they were. Just one of them was enough to turn Little Rascal from Mao Xing's spirit body into a real human life form. It was clear how powerful they were. Ding Meng didn't plan on using them, so he handed them over to Little Rascal for her to decide. Apart from that, there was also the label of a 7-colored diamond. There were 3 of them, and there was no description of what they were. However, Ding Meng felt that these things were definitely of a higher level than the true red crystals. After thinking about it, Ding Meng activated the singularity and took out one of the divine light crystals. The cross-shaped star immediately shone brightly. It was so bright that nothing could be seen. It was a bit like the vision he had when he was fighting with Ling Xingqi. At this moment, Ding Meng immediately felt the powerful fluctuations of the divine light energy. The ghostly face suddenly said, "You are inside my void spirit ray. The energy fluctuations will be blocked. The outside world will not be able to sense it." Ding Meng suddenly remembered the general's last words. Why did she say that cold Yin was beneficial to him? It seemed like she wanted to use the void spirit ray to block the energy fluctuations. Just imagine, if he took out the crystal directly in space, the quantum radars of the major fleets would instantly lock onto him. Ding Meng slowly turned the singularity and carefully controlled it. Then, he put his palm close to the crystal. His brain exploded with a boom. A terrifying flow of energy surged into his body from his palm and instantly spread throughout his body. This situation was exactly the same as when he forcefully absorbed the silver core stone's technological energy in Meteor City. It was an unreasonable injection of energy into himself. However, the silver core stone and the divine light crystal could not be compared. Even though Ding Meng's origin was very powerful, he could not handle such a terrifying injection of energy. He reacted very quickly. He immediately activated the smelting space to absorb and convert as much energy as possible. However, this speed was not as fast as the amount injected. In just 1 or 2 minutes, he felt like his body was going to explode. If this continued, there would be problems. Ding Meng slapped the singularity with his palm. A bright white beam of light shot out from the singularity and entered the Taiji flowing light below. The entire Taiji diagram was instantly activated and began to spin wildly. A shocking scene finally appeared. The ghost face in the air began to recover. First, its face was no longer blurry and gradually became clear. The part of the cat face gradually faded away, revealing a human face. Then, not only did the face recover, but the body and limbs also began to take shape. After a long time, the figure of a white-haired old man appeared. This old man's clothes were similar to Cold Yin's. They were both quite retro, but he looked like an immortal. He even lowered his head to express his gratitude. "Thank you for your help, little friend." Ding Meng turned his wrist and the bright cross star stopped pouring energy into it, turning into the singularity and disappearing. However, his expression was not good because he found that he had underestimated the divine light crystal. Even though the crystal was small, not only had it recovered the void spirit ray's source spirit, it had also injected too much divine light energy into his body. He felt very uncomfortable and needed time to absorb and refine it. But seeing Senior 7 kills recover, Cold Yin was pleasantly surprised. "Senior, you've completely recovered?" 7 kills nodded. "This energy is very powerful and mysterious. I never thought that I would have the chance to absorb it. If little friend Ding Meng has any orders, I will definitely do my best." Ding Meng let out a soft sigh. "This is your true body?" 7 kills shook his head and said, "This is just my initial appearance. My true body died over 1,000 years ago." Cold Yin immediately sent a divine sense message to Ding Meng. Ding Meng immediately understood what was going on with this void spirit ray. Qi Sha was originally a very famous great elder in the devouring realm, but he had already fallen 1,000 years ago. Then, his spirit body and physical body were collected and refined in the devouring realm's sacred lake. After that, the dead people were continuously sent into the sacred lake to be refined, and they gradually evolved into void spirit rays. The source spirit was transformed from 7 kills spirit body after it evolved. From Mao Xing's point of view, this was the general's remnant divine sense. Of course, the devouring realm could do this at the price of countless rare resources. 100 years ago, 7 kills had participated in the bloody battle against the Federation with the army. He was unfortunately seriously injured at that time, so his source spirit also faded, turning into a broken body. After a long time of nurturing, the void spirit ray slowly recovered. However, the recovery was not ideal. It was like a starship that had been repaired and was less than 40% complete. Therefore, the Queen had given it to Cold Yin. Cold Yin had used the void spirit ray for a few more decades. Not only was the void spirit ray weak, but 7 kills divine sense was also very weak. However, Ding Meng's divine light energy had restored 7 kills source spirit to its peak in just 5 or 6 minutes. Perhaps Ding Meng himself did not know this, but it had to be known that Ling Yin would have had to spend at least 100 years in the devouring realm in just 5 or 6 minutes. She would have used countless heaven and earth treasures to nurture it. The price she had to pay would be unimaginable. This showed how terrifying the divine light energy the general had kept was. At this moment, Ling Yin and 7 kills looked at Ding Meng with a trace of respect in their eyes. Ding Meng said, "You said you saw the divine light energy 100 years ago? Where was that?" 7 kills replied respectfully, "It was in the war against the Saint Brilliance Federation that I saw a human master using martial arts and power in the form of light like yours. It was in the Zeta 2 star field." Ding Meng quickly asked, "Do you know who that person was?" 7 kills shook his head and said, "I couldn't see his face. At that time, our army had already retreated to the rear of the Zeta 2 star field. Defeat was basically set in stone. However, the previous queen insisted on attacking, so she ordered me to send 4 sect masters and several great elders from the poison cloud demons. The queen also summoned experts from the demons. Just as we were about to counterattack, a human expert suddenly appeared in the mother nest base. He was wearing a black shirt and pants, so we couldn't see his face clearly. Because his aura was too strong, we couldn't sense it. However, one thing that left a deep impression on me was that his aura was exactly the same as yours, almost exactly the same. Later, I learned that he was a divine light martial artist. Ding Meng thought to himself that he was not the only divine light martial artist. The Federation also had someone else. 7 Kills explained, this person also used weapons and martial arts in the form of light. In a short period of time, he killed 4 masters of our clan and killed all the people of the demon clan. It was during that battle that I was affected by the impact of both sides, which caused my vitality to be greatly damaged. He was afraid that Ding Meng would misunderstand, so he continued to explain, of course, I believe that person was definitely not you. Ding Meng was curious. Why do you say that? 7 Kills said meaningfully, although that person was wearing a black mask and we couldn't see his face, based on his movements, he didn't look like a young man like you. I have a feeling that this person isn't young. He should be quite old. Ding Meng suddenly remembered that Ling Xingqi once said that 26 years ago, in the fortifications built inside the supercrystal, there was also a human expert who came and wiped out the elites of the black handprint easily. Could these 2 people be the same person? Could it be related to the clues of Miao Xing? But if it was, then why wasn't the general alerted by that person? There must be another explanation here. Ding Meng thought about it and decided not to dwell on these complicated questions for now. The most important thing now was to convert the excess energy in his body. As this was the first time he used the energy in the warehouse, he had no idea. He gently touched the divine light crystal and did not expect the smelting space to show signs of exploding. He had to quickly refine this energy. How long will it take for you to fly to the Zirital star field now? Ding Meng asked. 7 Kills immediately showed a confident expression. At normal speed, it will take me 60 days. If you need me to speed up, I can enter the wormhole and arrive within 2 hours. Ding Meng waved his hand and said, you don't have to sacrifice your energy to open the wormhole. 2 months is enough. 7 Kills immediately said gratefully, thank you, young friend Ding Meng. During this time, I will ensure the safety of you and the sect master. Please rest assured. Chapter 711. Ding Meng had to slowly open his eyes after hearing Isendale's roar. In fact, he had already woken up. Although the 2 of them had been very crazy, it was not enough for him to fall asleep from exhaustion. In fact, his original intention was to inject energy into Isendale's body with his palm, but Isendale's various teasing actions had destroyed his rationality. However, it was not his fault. Normal men would not be able to resist, let alone a beauty like her who could bring disaster to a country. Ding Meng could not help but sigh. Stop shouting. You should be thanking me. Thanking you? Isendale was so angry that she laughed. This is the first time I've heard of a man wanting a woman to thank him after raping her. Ding Meng frowned and said, who was the one raping her last night? Was it me? Isendale immediately blushed. She still vaguely remembered all the crazy things last night. She was the one who had taken the initiative first, and Ding Meng had not moved at all. However, she was not willing to give up. Bastard, I endured the kick last time, but this was my first time, and it's gone just like that, woo-woo. As she spoke, she actually cried bitterly on the lotus leaf. Ding Meng was also a little helpless. Okay, don't cry. Now try to use your basic technique to activate the origin in your heart. Extend it to your limbs and then withdraw it. See if I'm talking nonsense. Are you going to thank me? Isendale secretly activated her origin energy. She was surprised to find that all the origin energy in her body had been strengthened by more than 2 times. The origin energy in her body felt as if it had been changed once again. It was extraordinarily powerful. She had broken through the barrier of 10 billion origin energy index, which was the realm of a warlord. I couldn't do anything to you before, but now you're going to die. Izendale suddenly jumped up from the lotus leaf and used all her strength to chop Ding Meng's face in the air. With a muffled bang, the karate chop landed accurately on Ding Meng's forehead. Izendale was confident that her palm could split a mountain. However, Ding Meng did not move at all. He looked straight at her and said, "Don't waste your energy. Although you are much stronger now, I am 10 times stronger than you." Izendale looked at Ding Meng in shock. She realized that, as Ding Meng had said, this palm strike was like hitting a target on a boxing machine. No matter how hard she tried, she could only get a score at most. It was impossible to knock down the machine with one palm strike. Suddenly, she found that Ding Meng was staring at her chest with evil intentions. She was shocked. It turned out that her shirt was still open, and the insides had long been torn off. Ding Meng was staring at the beautiful spring scenery. "What are you looking at?" Izendale tightened her collar and floated back to the lotus leaf. Ding Meng sighed. "Okay, I won't look. Anyway, I've seen what I should and shouldn't see. I'm very familiar with your body structure now." Izendale almost choked to death. Sure enough, the thoughts and words of an iron-willed man were not interesting at all. However, now that it had happened, there was no point in pursuing it. "Why did I suddenly improve so much?" Izendale asked. "Is it because of the so-called divine light energy?" Ding Meng said, "Yes, but that's the diluted and refined divine light energy. Strictly speaking, you are now a divine light warrior, but you don't have divine light techniques or weapons." This was the truth. After all, not every Origin ability user had the opportunity to come into contact with divine light energy. From this point of view, Izendale was a lucky person. Ding Meng had no choice but to do so. It was better to give Izendale a boost than to have the furnace explode in his smelting space, right? However, Izendale's temper quickly flared up. "You, come here." Ding Meng didn't understand. "Why should I come here?" Izendale was really embarrassed and angry. She braced herself and said, "When other men take a woman's first time, they will always sweet-talk and accompany her. You, on the other hand, ran so far away like a thief. Do you dislike me? Throw me away after using me? Or do you think I'm a tool for you to vent your anger?" This. Ding Meng was suddenly speechless. What she said seemed to make some sense, so he had to get up and sit down on the lotus leaf. The two of them sat face to face. Izendale was not as shy now, but Ding Meng was a bit uncomfortable. Looking at each other at such a close distance made him very uncomfortable. Even he and Dai rarely had such a situation. Izendale stared at him like a tiger watching its prey. "Pick up my clothes." This time, Ding Meng was not happy. "You have hands and feet. Don't you know how to do it yourself?" Izendale was angry again. "Do you want to be a freeloader? Do you want to wash your hands of me after you're done? You were so crazy last night. Is it hard for you to pick up a few clothes for me now?" "Okay." Ding Meng had to admit that what she said made some sense, so he obediently went down to pick up the clothes. When he carried a pile of clothes onto the lotus leaf bed, Izendale said angrily, "Help me put on these clothes." Ding Meng stared at her. "Do you need me to feed you?" Izendale said angrily. "Do you think I don't want to do it myself? I'm hurting all over now." Ding Meng said, "No one hit you this time. Why are you hurting?" Izendale said angrily, "Are you the Alloy Demon King? Don't you know what you did last night? I was poisoned by that bitch, Ling Yin. The first time, I was the one who wanted you. It's fine if you wanted me once, but after that, you wanted me so many times. What do you mean?" Ding Meng suddenly blushed. He argued, "I was also injecting energy into you and transforming the origin. Otherwise, how could you improve so quickly?" This was a classic lie. After the first time last night, Ding Meng was satisfied, but Izendale's drug did not wear off. She insisted on sticking to him and begging him to have her. Which man could refuse such a request? T. Izendale blushed. In fact, she had some recollection of it, but the bliss of being in the company of Ding Meng was too great. She flew up into the sky and then fell down to the ground. After being repeatedly pounded by Ding Meng 7 or 8 times, she finally fell asleep due to fatigue. It must be known that Ding Meng was a strong origin ability user. It would be strange if Isendale did not feel pain from such repeated movements. However, it was still the same principle. Since he had taken advantage of her, he should do 1 or 2 small things for her. Therefore, Ding Meng could only help her put on her clothes. Unfortunately, the Alloy Demon King was a country bumpkin who had not seen much of the world when it came to women. He did not even know how to put on the complicated interior. He fiddled with it for a long time but still could not get the point. "You useless guy, I'll do it myself." Isendale snatched it away. After a series of rustling sounds, Isendale returned to her multi-style image. The only difference was that her cheeks were bright red and she looked very delicate. "Ding Meng, you better remember this. Previously, you hit me, threw me, kicked me, and even dragged me. Now, you're taking advantage of me. I won't take advantage of you for nothing. You have to do something for me," Isendale said unhappily. Ding Meng's eyelids drooped. "Then what do you want me to do?" Isendale shook her wavy hair. "I haven't thought about it yet. Let me think about it first." Isendale also had her own thoughts. From the perspective of a conflict of interest, Ding Meng was not her true enemy. However, the bad thing was that they were in a relationship. She valued her first time very much, but she never thought that it would happen under such circumstances. However, although Ding Meng was not her type, Ding Meng was definitely a powerful person who could help her and the Rainbow family. Therefore, she had to think of a way to get Ding Meng to help her solve some big problems before she was willing to let it go. However, Ding Meng's face suddenly darkened. "What are you doing sneaking around outside? Did you think I didn't notice you?" The grass curtain outside the door opened automatically, and Ling Yin walked in with a smile. "Did you rest well?" Seeing that it was Ling Yin, Isendale could not help but want to go berserk. "You be *tch. You poisoned me." Ling Yin ignored her completely. Instead, she spoke to Ding Meng respectfully. "Ding Meng, I have good news for you. We are about to arrive at 1,000 Sails Star in the Zeta 2 star sector." Ding Meng was a little surprised. "So soon?" Ling Yin shook her head. "Not soon. It's been 40 days. How long had it been?" He did not expect that more than a month had passed while he was cultivating. Isendale was also a little surprised. Could the magic apple be a slow-acting poison? Ling Yin was very polite to Ding Meng, but she started to put on airs in front of others. "How is it? Ms. Isendale, my apple poison will help you recover, right?" Isendale said anxiously, You're shameless." With her yell, Ling Yin knew that she had succeeded. She immediately said with a straight face, "Miss Eisen, you have to be polite to Ding Meng in the future. You can't yell at her and affect your image. You have to know that in our devouring world, women must strictly obey the orders of men. Do your job well and act well, ahem." Ding Meng coughed and glanced at her. "Sect Master Moji, it's best if you don't make decisions for me in the future. If Senior Shenguang finds out, you know what will happen." Hearing the word senior, Ling Yin trembled. Star General Mio's strength was like a nightmare. "Okay," Ling Yin said respectfully. "What do you plan to do next?" Ding Meng sighed. "Are you sure we will land on 1,000 Sails Star?" Ling Yin explained, "No. Senior 7 Kills and I will definitely return to the Poison Cloud Demon Sea. We both hope that you can visit our sect. But if you insist on going back to the Federation, we will send you to 1,000 Sails Star." Ling Yin had her own selfish reasons. It was none other than the divine light energy, but she did not have the face to ask. After all, she could not beat Ding Meng, and Ding Meng did not argue with her. Besides, Ding Meng had given her some of the energy to help 7 Kills recover his soul. As the sect master of a sect, she really did not have the face to ask for the energy now. As the sect master of the devouring sector, she could not lose face if she lost. This was Ling Yin's way of thinking. The so-called invitation meant that since she could not share the energy, she would try her best to keep Ding Meng as long as possible. This request was not too much, right? Chapter 7:12. Ding Meng actually wanted to accept Ling Yin's invitation. Not to mention other things, it was not safe for him to return to the Federation after destroying so many masters of the Starbao conglomerate. At least, he would not be able to go back for a while. This trip to the Fertile Chalk system made him realize that there were definitely people stronger than Ling Xingqi in the Holy Grail Federation. He would not lose to anyone in a one-on-one fight, but he would not necessarily win against those big conglomerates and families if they wanted to play dirty. Ding Meng pondered and said, I do want to go to the Poison Cloud Demon Sea, but if I go to Thousand Sails Star, I have some personal matters to attend to. Is that so? Ling Yin was a little disappointed. Then I will ask Senior 7 Kills to send you to the surface. If you have time in the future, you can come visit my 7 Mountain family. You are always welcome. When Izendale heard that Ding Meng wanted to go to Thousand Sails Star, she immediately became happy. As long as he entered the Zeta Star system, he would be a big step closer to returning to the Holy Grail Federation. The Zeta Star system was huge. It was not a pure star system, but was made up of a large amount of interstellar dust and meteorite belts. There were only a few planets in it. It was because of this celestial environment that it became a very important strategic junction between the Holy Grail Federation and the devouring world. No matter who wanted to start a fight, it would take a lot of effort for an army to cross the Zeta Star system. In the Zeta Star system, Thousand Sails Star was a very important junction planet. This huge terrestrial planet was located in the center of the junction between the north and the south. In fact, Thousand Sails Star was originally inhabited by a large number of natives and outer space refugees. Although it was not prosperous, it reduced the burden of the Holy Grail Federation. However, the War of the Devouring World 100 years ago almost destroyed all life on the planet. As a result, Thousand Sails Planet became a barren land. The planet's environment was divided into 2 categories. First, it was filled with sand and dust everywhere. This was an environment that was barely suitable for human habitation. Second, it was a poisonous half-desert, half-quagmire. This was the aftermath of the war that had taken place 100 years ago. The strange poison that had devoured the world was difficult to completely eradicate, so it had spread throughout the land, giving birth to all kinds of poisonous monsters. The Void Spirit Ray didn't completely land on the ground. After entering the atmosphere, it dropped Ding Meng and Izendale down according to the coordinates Ding Meng had specified. This was a desert filled with rock. Occasionally, water would flow between the rocks. The sky was foggy and filled with sand. In fact, this kind of terrain was easy to imagine. This must be the intersection of the human desert and the poisonous pool of the devouring realm. Turning on her wristwatch, Izendale was dismayed to find that she could not connect to the International Space Network. Ding Meng seemed to know what she was thinking. It's useless. The wristwatch's signal is too weak. Only starships and base stations can connect to the International Space Network. Izendale slumped on a rock. If you know there's no signal, why did you come here? Ding Meng said, I came here for something. Something? Izendale sneered disdainfully. I don't even see a blade of grass here, let alone a person. What can you possibly want? Ding Meng said, Who told you there's no one here? Izendale was stunned. Can anyone survive in a place like this? Ding Meng said meaningfully, Maybe for a lady like you, this place isn't even a garbage dump. But for some people, as long as they can survive, they can endure any harsh environment. As he spoke, he walked into the sandstorm. Izendale was anxious. Wait, where are you going? I'm going to find someone, of course. Ding Meng did not even look back. Izendale quickly jumped off the rock and followed him. Hey, are you going to leave me alone? she asked. Ding Meng turned around and asked, "What do you want now?" Izendel curled her lips. "I can't walk. Carry me. My body is sore." "It's all your fault. This is nothing to you, right? You're an advanced battle saint and can't walk? Who are you trying to fool?" Ding Meng thought about it and decided to bear with it. "Okay. I'll carry you." The scene was a bit awkward. Izendel was bigger than Ding Meng in both size and physique. Ding Meng looked like he was carrying a big man on his back. Izendel was secretly pleased. "Humph, I can't touch you, but it's not bad to make you a coolie." The two of them passed through the obstacles formed by the wind and sand. After walking for about an hour, they finally arrived in front of a small mountain range formed by stone mountains. This mountain range was not high, but at the foot of the mountain, there were small houses built with stones. This was a human village. Seeing this dilapidated village, Ding Meng let out a long sigh and put Izendel down. Izendel was obviously very smart. "You've been here before?" "Yes." Ding Meng looked very calm, but there was a trace of nostalgia in his eyes. When the princess had transported him from the De Sheng kingdom to the Holy Brilliance Galaxy, the first teleportation point had been this village. At that time, he could not resist the power of the Holy Spirit and fainted by the river. It was the same small river, and there was still someone by the river. It was a young man with a strong back and a strong waist. The young man was only wearing a pair of underpants. His skin was a healthy bronze color, and his muscles were abnormally well developed. He was holding a fishing spear made of bone spikes and poking fish. The young man was obviously not an origin ability user, and he did not notice Ding Meng and Izendel nearby. Ding Meng slowly walked to the river and called softly, "Gu Zi." The young man was startled. He turned around and was stunned. "You, Ding Meng?" Ding Meng finally smiled. "Thank God, you still remember me." Gu Zi threw away the fishing spear and ran over. He jumped in front of Ding Meng happily. It was obvious that he was very happy. "Brother Ding Meng, I didn't expect you to come back after so many years." Ding Meng smiled. "Gu Zi, you were still a child when I left. I didn't expect you to grow up so much. You're even taller than me now." As he spoke, he gestured with his hand above his head. However, Gu Zi's eyes suddenly turned red. "Brother Ding Meng, this is great. You're still alive. We all thought you were dead." Ding Meng smiled. "Good people don't live long, but disasters can last for 1,000 years. I'm a disaster." Gu Zi was still jumping happily. "This is great, this is great." He was not good with words, but his body movements could not be faked. Even Izendel could see that the young man was happy from the bottom of his heart when he saw Ding Meng. Moreover, she also noticed that although Ding Meng had a smile before, it was mostly a cold and fake smile when facing enemies. However, facing this young man, Ding Meng's smile was very warm, and also came from the bottom of his heart. He didn't look like a warlord at all, but more like a friendly boy next door. This place must be very important to him. Izendel made this judgment. At this time, Gu Zi turned his head and shouted in the direction of the village, "Yitzi, come out quickly. Brother Ding Meng is back. Come quickly. Brother Ding Meng is here." A girl quickly rushed out of a bungalow at the edge of the village. This girl named Yitzi was the same as Gu Zi. Her skin was bronze, her muscles were strong, and her hair was tied into a braid. However, to Izendel's surprise, Yitzi was completely naked. She rushed straight over. It seemed that Ding Meng was not surprised. He was still smiling, as if everything was normal. Yitzi also jumped and laughed around Ding Meng. "It's really Brother Ding Meng. You haven't changed at all. Brother Ding Meng, you've been gone for more than 10 years. We often think of you." Ding Meng smiled and said, "Yitzi, you've grown up. It's not easy to survive." Yitzi's eyes suddenly turned red. It was obvious that the price to survive in this place was unimaginable. Izendel asked carefully, "Ding Meng, why aren't they wearing clothes?" Ding Meng glanced at her and sighed, "Because there are no clothes to wear here." Izendel was stunned. He didn't even have any clothes? Was this place so backward? However, she quickly felt relieved. As she said, there was not even a blade of grass here. Even if they wanted to wear tree bark, they couldn't. Guzi then noticed Eisendel's existence. He suddenly looked alert and asked, "Brother Ding Meng, who is this person?" Eisendel did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Don't you know what I mean? Can't you tell that I'm on the same side as Ding Meng?" Well, Ding Meng was also in a dilemma. If he explained that they were friends, Guzi and his sister would definitely not understand. This place was too primitive. Guzi and his brother did not know what friends were. In their concept, there was only the difference between family and outsiders. Ding Meng simply explained, "Well, her name is Eisendel. She's my woman. You can call her sister Eisendel." Eisendel was speechless. "Are you done taking advantage of us?" Guzi's eyes lit up. "So she's one of us. Hello, Sister Eisendel." Iko, on the other hand, was curiously looking at Eisendel's galactic clothes. The envy in her eyes could not be concealed. In fact, Iko's facial features were very well defined. Perhaps it was because she had been working and hunting all year round that she had a strong physique and overly developed muscles. Iko's eyes were very clear and her gaze was very pure. Eisendale could not help but feel compassion for her. When she was Iko's age, she had a villa to store her various fashions and accessories. She had even hired 2 high-level tailors to manage and maintain the villa. Yitzi was also a young girl, but she didn't even have a set of clothes to cover her body. Eisendale had never thought that the Saint Brilliance Federation, which was already in the interstellar era, would have such a huge gap between people. Eisendale took out a set of dark blue training clothes from her 100 treasures satchel and said, "Iko, I'll give you this set of clothes. Go and change into it." Iko did not dare to take it. She just turned her head to look at Ding Meng, meaning to ask Ding Meng. Ding Meng smiled and nodded. "Take it. She means well." Iko quickly took it and bowed. "Thank you, Sister Eisendel. Thank you. Thank you." It was said that clothes made the man. As soon as Iko put on the new training clothes, she immediately became spirited. She patted them left and right and could not bear to put them down. Eisendel also smiled. "It looks good. Much more spirited than when I was young." Iko bowed again. "Thank you, sister." Guzi waved his hand. "We're family. Let's go in and sit." Chapter 713. The bungalow in the village was called a house, but in fact there was almost nothing inside. Apart from a pile of sundries in the corner, there was no window, no light source, no table, no bed. Guzi, Yitzi and Ding Meng directly sat on the ground. Eisendale did not sit down. The reason was simple. She disliked the dirt on the floor, and the room was filled with all kinds of unpleasant smells, like the stench of dead animals. Guzi and Yitzi were obviously very happy. Yitzi even dug around in the pile of junk for a while and dug out a string of black things. "Brother Ding Meng, are you hungry? Eat something first." Yitzi happily handed over the string of black things. This time, Eisendale saw it clearly. It was a string of dried meat, but the dried meat was black and yellow. It was impossible to tell that it was dried meat. It also emitted a rotten smell. Just smelling it made her want to vomit, let alone eat it. As an origin ability user, she was immune to rotten food. Eisendale's nausea was completely out of her womanly instinct. After all, she had enjoyed all kinds of fine wine and delicacies in the Federation City. How could she eat this? However, Ding Meng didn't mind. After receiving it, she took a big bite and chewed with relish. "Sister, you should eat some too," Yitzi said timidly. She was a little scared of this beautiful and eye-catching big sister. Eisendale really wanted to say, "Is this thing edible?" But when she met Yitzi's eyes, her heart softened. "No, I'm not hungry." After chatting for a while, Ding Meng asked, "Guzi, where are the people in the village? Did they all go hunting?" Guzi's smile immediately disappeared. "Brother Ding Meng, Only Yitzi and I are left in the village now. Ding Meng frowned. What happened? Where are the village chief and the others? Guzi sighed. They're all dead. Ding Meng was stunned. How did they die? Guzi's gaze fell to the ground. He died 8 years ago. Uncle Jixiang went to the polluted area to hunt but was dragged away by the octopus monster. The village elder brought people to search for him, but they failed to return. Ding Meng also fell into silence. Where are your grandparents? Guzi said sadly. 6 years ago, during the Great Cataclysm, it snowed here for 5 months. We couldn't find anything to eat, and we didn't have enough food. They all starved to death. Ding Meng stopped talking. He knew that death was a common occurrence in this place. The reason was simple. There was nothing here. Where are your parents? Ding Meng asked again. Guzi revealed a sad expression. Mother also went to the polluted area that year, but she couldn't find anything to eat. She could only go to the depths of the devouring realm to pick fruit. She found a few that weren't poisonous, but one of them was. She became a devouring monster. Yitzi also showed a sad expression, her eyes red. I killed her with my own hands and buried her properly. Izendel couldn't understand this. She couldn't help but ask, can't you save her? Yitzi shook her head. She was poisoned by the devouring realm. If we let her live, we'll become monsters too. Izendel couldn't say anything. She didn't dare to kill her own mother with her own hands. She had never even thought about it. Guzi said, Father also found a lot of stone fruits, but he was robbed on the way back. He was killed by the people who sealed the mountain. Ding Meng slowly put down the jerky in his hand. He couldn't eat anymore. Where's Sister Heezy? Ding Meng still didn't want to give up. Guzi said, she left last year. Just like you, Ding Meng, there was a merchant who said that they would take in alien refugees and send them to the Holy Grail Federation to work. She went, but she hasn't come back yet. Ding Meng's gaze also fell to the ground. He looked a bit absent-minded. Izendel noticed the anger in Ding Meng's eyes. It seemed that Sister Heezy's experience wasn't as simple as Guzi said. After a long time, Ding Meng sighed slightly. But you're still alive. That's a blessing in disguise. Guzi smiled again. Brother Ding Meng, it's good that you're back. It's okay, we can survive. Ding Meng waved his hand tiredly. Guzi, you and Yitzi go to your work. I want to rest for a while. Guzi immediately got up. Brother Ding Meng, rest well. I'll go catch some fish for you. Let's have a good meal tonight. Yitzi also got up. I'll go too. I want to catch some fish for Brother Ding Meng and let him have a good meal. The two of them left immediately. When they were out of the door, Izendel carefully asked, Is Sister Heezy dead? Ding Meng's expression didn't change. I'm pretty sure she's dead. Izendel didn't understand. Why do you say that? Ding Meng suddenly raised his head and murmured with a sigh, The traders Guzi mentioned are actually black market dealers. On the surface, they say they're recruiting workers, but in fact, they're selling these laborers to the black market as slaves. These slaves can't enter the Federation in the end. They're all sent to refugee camps and exiled to the peripheral planets to work as laborers. Izendel was silent. I've also heard that the survival rate of laborers on the exiled planet is less than 10%. Ding Meng sighed. I was kidnapped from here and sold to the slave market. Izendel was stunned again. But you survived. Ding Meng sighed even more heavily. It's because of their kindness that I'm still alive. Izendel said, Oh? Ding Meng said, When I first came here, I was so hungry that I fainted and was washed into the river. The siblings fished me out of the river and saved me with what was left of the family's tofu. I later found out that the tofu I ate was Sister Heezy's food for 2 days. She starved for 2 days and 2 nights because of me. She was only a teenager at that time. Izendel also sighed slightly. I never thought that these refugees would live such a painful life. The Federation always says that refugees are inferior and don't deserve to occupy public resources. Ding Meng said, Inferior people are also human. What's wrong with them wanting to live? But those shameless black market dealers still want to sell them. As he spoke, he pulled a ball of jerky into his mouth and chewed, gritting his teeth as if he was eating the meat of a black market dealer. Izendel couldn't smell it. It's so smelly. Ding Meng glanced at her and said, the two of them must have risked their lives to find these skewers in the polluted area. I'm sure they wouldn't be willing to eat them and would store them for emergencies. They're only willing to give them to their loved ones. They treat us like family. Izendel stared at him and said sincerely, can you give me some? Ding Meng tore off a piece of jerky and handed it to her. Izendel put it in her mouth and chewed slowly. This time, she didn't show any disgust. Instead, she said calmly, it's not as bad as I thought. I even think it's a little fragrant. Ding Meng looked at her and couldn't help but smile. I'm curious. How come you're best friends with someone like Ling Xingqi? Izendel said, am I different from her? Ding Meng nodded. Yes. At least you're willing to sit in this place and eat this kind of food. But I don't think she can do it. Izendel blushed and lowered her head shyly. Ding Meng's gaze made her feel a little embarrassed, and even her heartbeat sped up. She suddenly recalled last night's craziness. The two of them were inseparable from each other, that kind of sweetness and happiness. The relationship between a man and a woman was sometimes really strange. Two people who originally had no connection with each other suddenly had a kind of tacit understanding and could consider problems from each other's standpoint. Izendel suddenly said, I found that you're different from many of the old monsters of origin. Ding Meng asked curiously, what's different? Izendel sighed. I've seen many famous masters, but very few of them came from refugee camps like you. Although those people also experienced a lot of hardship, they couldn't go back to the past after they became famous. But you're not like that. You're still thinking about this place. You didn't even go back to the Federation and came here to look for them. At least you didn't forget about them. Ding Meng smiled. Maybe I'm a wretch and like to live like this. No, Izendel said seriously. Some men look ferocious on the surface, but they have kindness in their bones. It's just that there are very few of them. Ding Meng smiled. You think too highly of me. I just have nowhere to go now. Such a big thing happened in the Fertile Chalk system. The Starbow group must be looking for me all over the world. I can't find anyone here, so I'm happy to have some peace and quiet. Izendel couldn't help but be infected by his optimism. Can I stay here for a while? Ding Meng looked at her meaningfully. Can you stay here? Isendel's arrogance came up. I cultivated to the level of a battle saint. What kind of difficulties have I not experienced? Besides, after eating such precious food, I should do one or two things for them. The jerky tastes good. Give me some more. I'm a little hungry. I find you more pleasing to the eye now. Ding Meng threw the jerky to her. Izendel flipped her hair. I'm the most pleasing to the eye. You just didn't like it before. Ding Meng's eyelids drooped. I've seen what I should and shouldn't see. There's no such thing as disliking it. Izendale threw a skewer of jerky at his face. Are all straight men like you so straightforward? Don't you know how to make a girl happy? You're the Alloy Demon King. I'll just call you Demon King from now on. Ding Meng looked indifferent. Up to you. As long as you're willing to stay here and help the two of them, you can call me whatever you want. As he said this, Ding Meng's eyes fell on the satchel at her waist. Izendel immediately became alert. What? Are you thinking about my baby again? Don't even think about it. The two ate the jerky for a while and chatted for a while. The sky gradually darkened. Guzi and Yitzi finally came back with a few skewers of fresh fish. Chapter 7:14. The night was getting darker, and the starlight covered the dry land with a layer of silver frost, making the clear river glow. Guzi made a bonfire by the river. Yitzi skewered large fish with her fishing spear and roasted them. Although she did not add any seasoning, the smell was enough to arouse anyone's appetite. Izendale could not help but laugh. It's strange. I haven't felt hungry in a long time, but today I want to eat at least 10 of these fish. Hearing this, Guzi was very happy. If you like, we can catch more. Ding Meng was also roasting the fish. I remember that there were not many fish in this river before. How did you catch so many at once? Guzi obviously could not answer this question. He could only smile foolishly. I don't know. But recently, a lot of fish have been washed down from the upper reaches of the river. Isendale also felt strange. Food is so scarce here, but you two have grown so strong. Your bodies should not be lacking nutrition for a long time. Guzi smiled. Yes, Yitzi and I have always been thin. Recently we have become much stronger. Ding Meng put down his fishing spear and asked seriously, have you been eating or drinking something different recently? Yiko hesitated and said, not really. I just exchanged some blueberry plants for some nutrient solution in the town in the north. After drinking it, I felt that my body was extraordinarily strong. Ding Meng immediately became alert. Who did you exchange with? Yitzi said, a merchant from the market. He came from the Holy Grail Federation. Ding Meng did not ask any more questions. Instead, he opened his telekinetic vision and released a telekinetic dot. In an instant, he saw through the siblings' body functions and operating conditions. Ding Meng suddenly sighed. You are not poisoned. Guzi and Yitzi looked at each other, not understanding what he meant. Ding Meng continued, but you took drugs like oxytocin, which caused your bodies to grow too fast. It seems that there is something wrong with the blood-generating agent. I don't know what the black market dealers are up to. Are you going to sell the people on this planet as slaves again? Isendale asked in surprise. Ding Meng shook his head and said, if you want to recruit workers, you can just trick them with a few words or forcefully capture them. There's no need to waste so much effort. It seems that those damn peddlers are playing tricks again. Isendale asked, do you want to go and take a look? Ding Meng nodded. Of course we have to go. He hated this group of black market traders and slave traders. Thinking back to his days in the refugee camp, the coolies sometimes killed each other because of survival problems, but these people in the black market still wanted to eat people even if they were full. In the past, he could not resist, but now that he had the strength, he naturally would not sit and watch. Ding Meng suddenly turned to Isendale and asked, you should have some supplies with you, right? Isendale completely understood what he meant. She reached out to open her satchel and took out small metal boxes. They were all standard supplies like nutrient solutions and healing agents. Judging from the labels, they were all from the Holy Grail Federation. Young Mistress indeed had good stuff. There were 20 boxes in total, with 500 tubes in each box. This was enough for the brother and sister to survive for a long time. Isendale seemed to feel that this was not enough. She took out a few sets of galactic clothes and some standard weapons from her satchel. This made the brother and sister very happy. They held the clothes and the photoelectric guns and gestured non-stop. Ding Meng looked at her and exclaimed, you really have everything in your satchel. Isendale smiled softly. She saw deep gratitude in Ding Meng's eyes. However, Guzi obviously realized something. Brother Ding Meng, are you going to town? Ding Meng had already stood up. Guzi, you guys stay here. We'll be back soon. After walking 30 kilometers upstream from the river beside the village, they arrived at the so-called town. In fact, Ding Meng also had an impression of this town. It used to be quite prosperous. There were tens of thousands of people in the town. Everyone usually hunted and gathered for a living. However, the streets of the town were now empty at night, and it was eerily dark. Isendale stood beside a dilapidated 2-story bungalow and looked around carefully. That's not right. According to what you said, there should at least be people here, right? But there's no one here now. Although it was late at night and there weren't many people in the town, there was no one in the houses. Where were the natives? Isendale suddenly pouted at Ding Meng. Someone's coming over there. Ding Meng also noticed that at the end of the street, 2 men carrying photoelectric guns were slowly walking towards them. Judging from their attire, they were not from this place. Sigh, there's no one here. Why are we patrolling in the middle of the night? You don't understand. Boss wants to see if there are still people from the nearby villages coming here. Oh, they're long gone. I heard from them a few days ago that boss wants to leave after this. There's no more profit in this place. That's not necessarily true. Yesterday, the starship said that the radar detected void spirit rays in the sky above Thousand Sails Star. Maybe a big shot from the devouring world came here. It's always right to come out and take a look. Ding Meng and Isendale exchanged a look. There's a starship here? Looks like this is an opportunity. The two of them did not say much and used their martial arts to hide. Ding Meng used his manipulation art. Even if he stood in front of the 2 men, they would not notice him. After strolling around the town, the 2 of them walked towards a church in the center of the town. The first floor of the church was brightly lit and spacious. Looking through the window, there were quite a number of people inside. They were all tall and strong men eating and drinking together. There were many empty wine bottles on the ground, and several large tables were filled with cooked chicken, duck, and fish. There were a total of 16 people in the room. Isendale hesitated. Who are these people? They don't look like locals. Ding Meng said in a low voice. If I'm not mistaken, they're either mercenaries or pirates. They're more likely to be pirates. Isendale's interest was immediately piqued. I haven't seen the legendary pirates yet. Not interesting at all. Ding Meng's expression was ugly. Look over there. Following his gaze, Isendale saw a group of people lying on the ground in the dark southeast corner of the church. They were all naked native women and looked very weak. It seemed that they had not eaten for a long time. What happened next made Isendale furious. She could clearly see that these pirates had eaten and drunk enough, so when they had nothing to do, they would casually drag a woman away to vent their beastly desires. A dozen or so of them could do whatever they wanted. As long as they were happy, they would casually feed the women with food scrap. It felt like they were abusing animals. Isendale was about to lose her temper when Ding Meng stopped her. Forget it. I'll do it. You just watch. Very quickly, Ding Meng's figure appeared at the entrance of the church. The pirates who were in the midst of their lewd activities were suddenly startled. Their reactions were quite fast. They quickly stood up and raised their weapons, aiming their muzzles at Ding Meng. The leader, a fat man with big ears, was probably the leader of this group. He shouted, "Who's there?" Ding Meng walked in casually. "I'm just passing by. I'm here to ask for something to eat and drink." Seeing Ding Meng's tattered clothes, the leader could not help but sneer. "Oh, here comes another one." Ding Meng asked curiously, "What's wrong? Are you arresting someone?" The leader sneered. "You talk too much. How dare you come to us? Arrest him." Immediately, 2 pirates stepped forward and pressed down on Ding Meng's shoulders. "Boy, behave yourself. Otherwise, I'll break your arms." It was obvious that they couldn't twist it. Not to mention twisting it, they couldn't even press it down. Ding Meng didn't even need to exert any strength. The 2 pirates were immediately bounced off and sat on the ground. Ding Meng walked to the dining table in the center. He reached out and grabbed a braised pork hoof, stuffed it into his mouth, and chewed loudly. "Wow, the food's not bad, guys." The pirates were stunned. They were not impressed by Ding Meng's courage, but by the fact that Ding Meng could swallow a pork hoof as big as a casserole in one gulp. His facial muscles squirmed a few times, and then he spat out the bones. This way of eating was awesome. The leader's face darkened and he did not say anything. However, he secretly made a cutting gesture. Everyone understood. They picked up their guns and fired randomly. The church lit up, and dozens of laser beams were all aimed at Ding Meng. Ding Meng did not care at all. He continued to eat the various delicacies on the table. These pirates really knew how to enjoy themselves. They even got a whole roasted lamb. Ding Meng could let them go, but he would not let this one go. After this round of shooting, the whole roasted lamb was eaten until only the skeleton was left. This time, Ding Meng turned his head and said, "Have you had enough fun?" Everyone was dumbfounded. Even the concentrated power of the photoelectric gun couldn't even tear apart the tattered clothes on his body. Quite a number of people had already realized that this short man in front of them was definitely not an aborigine. He was an ironclad strong esper. Someone saw that the situation was not good. He threw away his gun and turned to run. Ding Meng raised his head and looked at the man. "Huh? Friend, you're running in the wrong direction." Wherever he looked, a dozen pirates flew into the air. It was as if they were pulled by a pair of invisible hands and thrown out of the church door in the opposite direction. Every time one of them flew out, there would be a shrill scream outside. Ding Meng believed that with Isendale's temper, she would not show mercy to these shameless pirates. In the blink of an eye, only the leader was left on the first floor of the church. The leader's laser gun fell to the ground. His hands were trembling. Big brother, I didn't treat you well. The food here. Please eat as you please, use as you please." Ding Meng turned his head and looked at him playfully. "Let me ask you, which force in outer space do you belong to?" The leader said nervously, We don't belong to any force." "Ha ha." Ding Meng picked up a chicken leg, put it in his mouth, and spat it out. The leader immediately screamed like a pig being slaughtered. The chicken bone shattered his right knee. He fell to the ground and screamed desperately. Ding Meng picked up another chicken leg and continued to eat. "You can be dishonest, but I want to see how many legs you have." Chapter 7:15. Big brother, we're really not a force from outer space. The leader's voice sounded like he was crying. Ding Meng didn't bother to ask any more questions. With a gentle suction of his palm, a sharp table knife on the table appeared between his fingers. After that, Ding Meng slowly squatted down in front of him. The leader was scared out of his wits when he saw the shiny table knife. Pirates were all about eating, drinking, and having fun. If one or two key parts of their body were missing, what was the point of doing well in the future? "Big brother, I really don't have any force," the leader said in tears. "Huh." Ding Meng found that this guy didn't seem to be lying. "Let me ask you, where are the people in this town?" The leader hurriedly said, They were taken away." Ding Meng asked, "Where were they sent to?" The leader said, the starship." Ding Meng waved the table knife. "Where is the starship?" The leader said, "North of the town, 50 kilometers from here." Ding Meng continued, "Why did you take them away?" The leader said, "I don't know. Boss told us to do it." Ding Meng frowned and said, "Who is your boss? Tell me his name." The leader said, Hu Biao. Why does this name sound so familiar? Ding Meng suddenly remembered that it was Hu Biao who led the team that massacred the refugees of planet KV-303. Later, his arms and heart were destroyed by Ding Meng in his base on Cypress Grove. Ding Meng didn't expect that this guy was still alive and had come to Thousand Sails Star. Ding Meng sneered. "So you're from the Extreme Pirate Corps." In fact, the Extreme Pirate Corps had long ceased to exist. When Ding Meng killed everyone on Cypress Planet, Lu Ming and the other leaders had been killed by him. Later, their successors could not stand the actions of these pirates, so they were expelled from Cypress Planet. Hu Biao was one of the dregs, and he led his people to Zeta 2 Starfield. It seemed that he had been too lenient back then, allowing this scourge to escape to this place. Ding Meng stood up. Wherever he looked, the group of women in the corner had all recovered their strength by using telekinesis. One by one, they got up. Ding Meng looked at the leader with a broken leg and sneered, "I can spare your life, but it's none of my business whether others kill you or not." The leader was horrified to find that the natives had picked up the photoelectric guns from the ground. These women had been humiliated by them. Now that they had weapons in their hands, it was easy to imagine what would happen to him. F***CK. The leader murmured. Ding Meng walked out of the church. Outside, corpses were strewn all over the ground. Every corpse had a hole in their heart. Ding Meng's eyelids drooped. I say, you're really cruel. You didn't even let them go when they were dead. Isendale gritted her teeth and said, Scum who bully women deserve to die. Cough, cough. Ding Meng felt a chill for no reason. His relationship with Isendale was similar. Was she going to use extreme methods too? Where are we going now? Isendale asked. Ding Meng said decisively, Let's go to the starship and see what they're doing. As soon as the two left, the sound of photoelectric guns firing rang out in the church. The leader was probably blown up. There was no starlight in the depths of the Gobi Desert under the silent night. Instead, it was misty drizzle. In fact, this place was like a wet and muddy swamp in the devouring sector, which was the so-called polluted area. On the muddy grassland, a shabby medium-sized transport ship was anchored in the quagmire. The entire ship was brightly lit, but Ding Meng and Isendale were undoubtedly disappointed. It was unrealistic to expect this unmarked starship to return to the Federation. The connecting cabin was wide open, and a group of fully armed pirates were moving large containers down the lift, pushing them deeper into the swamp. Isendale used her origin energy to sense carefully. She could not help but be shocked. These boxes were filled with living people. At a glance, she knew that they were the natives. However, these people were exceptionally large, as if they had been carefully cultivated and fed to be fat and big. They were living giant pigs. An ominous feeling rose in Isendale's heart. They are. Ding Meng's face was very ugly. The devouring sector's demon generals are flesh-eaters. They specialize in devouring living humans to complete their evolution. Isendale said in a low voice, We can't let them feed people to the monsters. Ding Meng nodded. I'll leave the pirates outside to you. I'll go inside the starship. Then, he shot toward the connecting cabin like an arrow. With their skills, these ordinary pirates could not see them at all. After Ding Meng boarded the ship, he rushed directly to the command hall. Along the way, there were armed soldiers, but these people were completely invisible to him. When the Terminator released his psychic power, no one could see his real body. They directly fainted and fell to the ground. The alarms on the transport ship kept ringing. The alloy door of the command hall was quickly kicked open by Ding Meng. He was too lazy to pay attention to the staff at the control desk. He saw a group of people sitting in the lounge, among them a few old men. The leader was Hu Biao from the pirate team. Hu Biao's arms were fitted with alloy prosthetic. There was no aura of origin energy on his body. He had indeed been crippled by Ding Meng. When he saw the intruder clearly, Hu Biao was shocked. Ding Meng, it's you. Ding Meng sneered. I was too kind. It was my fault that I didn't kill you completely back then. I didn't expect you to transport the residents here to the devouring sector like animals. Hu Biao sneered. Ding Meng, do you think you can order me around with your mediocre skills? You came at the right time. It's time to settle the score with Bogus Star. Seeing Hu Biao's fearless look, Ding Meng scanned the old men with his psychic power. He couldn't help but laugh. Hu Biao, is this the backer you're relying on? Hu Biao immediately turned his head to look at one of the hale and hearty old men in a suit. Old Nian, this is the brat who destroyed Brother Ming's extreme thief core back then. I'll leave it to you this time. This brat is at most a war elder. It was obvious that his information was too outdated. His knowledge of Ding Meng was still the same as it was 8 years ago. Of course, he couldn't be blamed for being uninformed. The main reason was that Ding Meng's current reputation was only known by a small number of people in the top circle. A lowly character like him didn't even have the qualifications to know. Old Nian took 2 steps forward and looked at Ding Meng with interest. Hee, you're quite interesting. Kid, you're only in your 30s. How dare you meddle in our business? Ding Meng sighed. You'd better tell me your family. Maybe I'll consider letting you live. If you don't, I'm sorry, but I can only think of you as the same kind of trash as Hu Biao. Arrogant. Old Nian's face sank. What qualifications do you have to ask about the Nian family's business? Ding Meng's eyelids drooped. He had never heard of the Nian family. Which Nian family? Ignorant. Old Nian didn't hesitate. He took a step forward and slapped him. Let me teach you a lesson first. Do you know how to respect your elders? His palm was red all over. Obviously, he cultivated the thermodynamic system. As he moved, the surrounding temperature rose sharply. It seemed that he had some attainments in origin energy. But so what? If he encountered a monster like Ding Meng, he would be digging his own grave. In the eyes of Hu Biao and the others, this palm strike was extremely powerful. However, in Ding Meng's eyes, it couldn't be any slower. He didn't even have the slightest interest in dodging. The palm struck Ding Meng's forehead like lightning. At least, Hu Biao and the others thought that the palm had hit. However, for some reason, old Nian's feet slipped and he staggered over his head. He couldn't stop in time and fell to the ground. Ding Meng helplessly shook his head and slowly walked toward Hu Biao. You're already so old, yet you're still so careless. Sigh, stop right there. Another old man in a gray mandarin gown shouted sternly. Ding Meng was amused. I'm not going to stop. What are you going to do about it? The old man in the gray jacket was enraged. He spread out his palms and slammed them together. This was a classic ice-type technique. Unfortunately, the dark ice energy that he had imagined would turn Ding Meng into an ice sculpture didn't appear. Ding Meng was still walking slowly, perfectly fine. The man in the gray jacket almost suspected that he wasn't circulating his origin energy. He once again gathered all his strength and pushed his palms forward. He had clearly released his ice-type origin energy, but there was nothing in the air. There was no ice wall, no white gas, no fluctuations. He had cultivated ice-type origin energy for over 100 years, but he couldn't immediately explain what was going on. Actually, the reason was very simple. Ding Meng's telekinesis had already formed a telekinesis field that controlled the entire command center. As soon as he exerted his power, Ding Meng also secretly released his origin energy. The heat instantly vaporized his ice-type origin energy, but it happened too quickly. No one present could detect it, nor could they see it. In the end, the difference in strength was too great. Even if you wanted to fight, you couldn't. There's something strange about this kid. The man in the gray jacket had a bad feeling. At this moment, the old man had already gotten up and turned around, preparing to launch another sneak attack from behind. Ding Meng sighed helplessly. I've already said that you're quite old. You look like you're over 100 years old. You dare to be so arrogant when you're just a combat master? He suddenly turned around and exhaled. Just this casual exhalation caused the old man to feel as if he had slammed into an iron wall. His entire body was sent flying dozens of meters before slamming into a control panel. More than half of the alloy control panel had collapsed, and sparks of electricity crackled from it. The old man collapsed to the ground. It looked like he had been knocked unconscious. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. What kind of godlike technique was this? How could it knock someone unconscious with a single breath? The man in the gray jacket panicked. Everyone, let's attack together. He still had some insight and knew that there was something strange going on. This brat in front of him wasn't weak. He definitely wasn't a battle sovereign. He was very likely a high-level battle master, or even a general-level battle warrior. If the 5 of them attacked together, they might still have a chance. Seeing the 5 old men surround him, their hands and feet flashing wildly with red and blue light, Ding Meng couldn't be bothered to distinguish their elements and battle technique. He simply stood there without moving and crossed his arms in front of his chest. Come, come, come. I want to see what kind of tricks you guys have up your sleeves. Chapter 7:16. The 5 old men were clearly well coordinated. One of their fists struck Ding Meng's face, 2 of their palms struck Ding Meng's chest, and the remaining 2 kicked Ding Meng's right shoulder and left temple. If a normal origin energy user were to take so many blows to their vitals, they would at least be knocked back, if not fatally wounded. However, Ding Meng was still standing there like a piece of metal, completely unaffected. Hu Biao had originally thought that he could definitely take down Ding Meng, but now he was completely dumbfounded. The combined attacks of 5 combat masters had actually been unable to shake him in the slightest. 8 years ago, Ding Meng had given off an unfathomable feeling, and 8 years later, he was still the same. At that moment, Ding Meng's lips curled into a strange smile. "You're already so old, yet you're still doing this kind of shady business. There's no point in keeping you alive." The 5 old men instinctively retreated, but they discovered that no matter how much force they exerted, their bodies were no longer under their control. It was as if they were being sucked in by some kind of invisible force. Suddenly, the hands and feet of the 5 old men that had struck Ding Meng transformed into red origin flames. This was not the diamond starfusing art, but rather the simplest form of origin energy release. The origin flames that Ding Meng had released were tens of thousands of degrees Celsius. How could combat masters possibly withstand such heat? The 5 old men instantly collapsed to the ground, rolling, howling, and struggling. They had indeed trained bitterly for over 100 years, but in an instant they were all crippled. Hu Biao's entire body went cold. He had spent a lot of money to invite these experts from the Federation, but in the end, Ding Meng hadn't even had to do anything, and they had all been crippled. With a plop, Hu Biao proactively knelt down. Ding Meng stared at him coldly. "Speak. How do you want to die?" Hu Biao immediately kowtowed and said, "Brother Ding, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Please spare my life." This time, Ding Meng did not even give him a chance to explain. He raised his hand and spat out a stream of origin flame. The torrent-like heat instantly engulfed the entire resting area. The sofas, coffee tables, carts, steel plates, and even the 5 old men and Hu Biao were all turned into ashes in this torrent. The resting area was also turned into a deep pit. The entire command hall was silent. The remaining 30 or so staff members were dumbfounded. No one dared to move. The huge deterrents had suppressed their fear. Everyone knew that in front of such a ferocious person, running away would only result in faster death. Ding Meng turned around again and waved his hand through the air. The unconscious Elder Nian was sucked over to him. After injecting a bit of telekinesis, the old man woke up. Ding Meng grabbed him by the neck and lifted him up. "Did you inject oxytocin into the residents of Thousand Sails Star when you captured them?" Elder Nian obviously did not know what had just happened. He could not help but be shocked and angry. "Little bastard, how dare you provoke the Nian family? You're tired of living. Then you can disappear too." Ding Meng exerted a little force, and Elder Nian suddenly turned into a human-shaped fireball. The fireball burned for 5 seconds and finally turned into wisps of smoke. The command hall was terrifyingly quiet. Ding Meng's gaze fell on a staff member beside the control panel. "You come here." This person was quite young. He seemed to be about the same age as Ding Meng. He was also wearing a suit and black-rimmed glasses on the bridge of his nose. He was probably a statistician. Ding Meng believed that the people working in the command hall must know the inside story. The statistician's entire body was trembling. He could barely move his feet. Trembling, he walked over to Ding Meng. "What's your name?" Ding Meng asked. The statistician said in a trembling voice, Ding Sheng." Ding Meng sighed. "You really have a good name. Tell me, were these residents injected with oxytocin and turned into pigs?" Ding Sheng lowered his head and said, Yes. Ding Meng said, "Are you still human? You raised your own kind into pigs and then gave them to the flesh-eaters?" Ding Sheng immediately knelt down. "Big brother, I know what I'm doing is inhumane, but I'm short on money. My mother at home is waiting for me to give her money to fix her broken leg." Ding Meng looked at him. "Hu Biao gave you money?" Ding Sheng stammered, Yes. Ding Meng said, Then what's in it for Hu Biao? Ding Xing said. Someone from the Flesh Eaters gave him diamonds and martial arts manuals. So, he asked these old men to help him. Ding Meng muttered, with Hu Biao's ability, he was still able to get such a job. It seems like Thousand Sails Star is no longer peaceful. The meaning of this was not something that a small fry like Ding Xing could understand. Thousand Sails Star was the core of the Zeta 2 star field. Why was it the border between the Federation and the Flesh Eaters? This was not only because of the geographical location, but also because the influence of both sides in this place was very balanced. There were humans living here, but there were also world-devouring monsters. Most of the humans were hunters, and most of the monsters were low-level creatures. You fought and I fought, and the two sides had coexisted for hundreds of years. However, now that the natives were being cultivated and fed to the monsters, it meant that flesh eaters were forming in this place. This balance had been quietly broken. Thousand Sails Star would be occupied by the flesh eaters sooner or later. This was the signal before a great war. The reason why there were flesh eaters instead of great elders was simple. That way, the Federation would be able to see through it immediately, and the Federation would quickly send out a fleet or experts to suppress it. Ding Meng looked at Ding Xing. From now on, I don't care what method you use. Make the natives return to normal. If you can't do that, I'll cultivate you into pigs and feed you to the monsters. Seeing that Ding Meng had changed his tone, Ding Xing immediately looked up. Yes, brother. I will follow your instructions. At this moment, Izendel walked in from the main passage. Ding Meng hurriedly asked, How was it? Izendel clapped her hands. No problem. I didn't kill the pirates. Let them heal these people. Ding Meng nodded. This woman's train of thought was very similar to his. The two of them walked to the control panel together. After fiddling with the control panel for a while, Ding Meng discovered that the starship's energy was very limited. It would be difficult to even fly to the Paradise Galaxy, let alone back to the Federation. This Hu Biao is probably not the only one who took this job. There should be other accomplices. Ding Meng came to this conclusion. Izendel also agreed. The Federation and the Flesh Eaters have been peaceful for many years, but I heard that the Flesh Eaters have never given up their determination to encroach on the Federation. Now that they're doing something on Thousand Sails Star, I'm guessing that something has happened to the Flesh Eaters. At this moment, the alarm on the starship sounded urgently again. Red light flashed wildly in the command room, and the entire starship seemed to tremble slightly. Ding Meng turned his head and asked, What's going on? Ding Xing hurriedly adjusted the screen and then looked shocked. The Flesh Eaters are attacking. Ding Meng and Izendel walked forward to take a look. The reconnaissance radar had already displayed the real-time image on the screen. They saw a large number of Flesh Eaters burrowing out of the swamp forest to the north, howling and swarming in the direction of the carrier. The pirates on the ground did not panic. 70 or 80 of them raised their weapons and began firing. All kinds of beams and energy bullets pierced through the night sky, looking very dazzling. Ding Meng frowned. Isn't that scum Hu Biao working with them? Why are they attacking us now? Ding Xing said in a low voice, Maybe they didn't receive these people and thought we were in the way, so Ding Meng waved his hand impatiently. What's in the way? Issue the order to wipe out these monsters. Ding Xing did not dare to argue with him. He immediately turned around and operated the communication system on the main control panel. Ding Meng had seen the Flesh Eaters before. These low-level Flesh Eaters looked scary, but in fact, they could not withstand human technological weapons. These pirates had been in outer space for many years and were quite experienced in dealing with the Flesh Eaters. They basically formed groups of 3 and formed a crossfire that swept back and forth. In an instant, large numbers of monsters fell, turning into pools of mud and poisonous liquid. Ding Meng, look over here, Izendel suddenly said. Ding Meng looked at the other radar screen and realized that something was wrong. Under the night sky, the vegetation around them was slowly growing. The strangely shaped plants were constantly twisting and extending, like the ferocious teeth of the monsters, forming a huge encirclement from the outside. However, this change was not obvious and was not easy to notice. After the flesh-eaters were blasted into pieces by the energy bombs, they turned into mud. More and more mud accumulated, and the ground gradually disappeared. This was a classic flesh-eater's assimilation, turning the ground into a poisonous carpet, multiplying the combat power of the monsters. Sure enough, the devourer monsters appeared in groups at the beginning, but now they were like waves, pressing over in waves. This scale had already surpassed the army of bone-armored monsters that they encountered on planet Madison. The firepower of 70 or 80 photoelectric guns and 10 miniature energy cannons could no longer achieve the suppressive effect. An energy bomb blasted over, seemingly blowing up dozens of flesh-eaters, but it felt like a hole had been punched in the wave. However, this hole was quickly filled by the monsters behind it. The waves themselves were intact and continued to press forward. Ding Meng said decisively, "Start the engine and prepare to take off. Let the people on the ground return to the connecting cabin." Although these people were evil pirates, Ding Meng did not intend to give up. It was better to be killed than to be eaten by the monsters. A familiar scene quickly appeared. The monkey monsters on Madison indeed appeared in the group of monsters in the distance. The difference was that the monkeys did not have bone armor plating. They were purely made of flesh. The same thing was that the monkeys had green plant javelins in their hands, while the monkeys on Madison used pure white bone javelins. The green javelins were clearly some kind of powerful poison. When the monkeys raised their hands, the poisonous javelins rained down like a rainstorm in the night sky. Many people were caught off guard and were stabbed in the heart and brain. They immediately fell to the ground and rotted into green pus at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ding Meng said decisively, "It's too late. Close the connecting cabin and take off quickly." Chapter 7:17. Crystal flames spewed out from the bottom of the broken carrier, and the whole ship swayed as it rose into the air. An amazing scene finally appeared. Tens of thousands of monkeys threw their poisonous guns into the sky like a swarm of locusts. It felt as if a large net was covering the starship. Many of the poison spears were melted by the crystal flames from the engine, but most of the poison spears pierced into the outer layer of the steel plate. It was unknown what the poison spears were made of, but not only could they easily pierce into the alloy steel plate, but they also began to slowly melt after piercing into it, corroding the steel plate to the point that black smoke was coming out of it. The system sounded, "Warning, warning, the current damage of the ship is 4%. What the hell is this? Even the carrier ship can't stop it?" Isendale exclaimed. "Magic swamp poison, a strange poison that can devour the alloy steel plate." Ding Meng was also quickly fiddling with the screen. He helplessly found that this broken ship did not even have the most basic weapon system and energy defense system. It seemed that Hu Biao and the other pirates were really afraid of being poor and had come to this place to make money. "Brother, what do we do now?" Ding Xing looked anxious. Obviously, he did not know how to deal with it. Ding Meng said in a low voice, "Lower the starship. Everyone, equip your armor and weapons. Gather at the rescue port. Everyone, prepare to go out and fight." Isendale was puzzled. "The damage is not high. Why don't we continue flying?" Ding Meng sighed. "We can't escape. You will soon understand." He didn't speak carelessly. At this time, the ground was completely invisible. It was filled with black monkeys, shouting and throwing poison spears. The transport ship was like a lump of burnt coal, swaying and slowly sinking. At the same time, a series of mournful monster cries came from the dark sky. It sounded like the sharp whistling of a whistle. Just the sound alone was enough to make one's ears hurt. Taking a closer look, one could see black pterosaurs appearing in the night sky. They looked like miniature void spirit skates, and they also covered the sky and covered the sun. These pterosaurs spat out streams of green acid from their mouth. This was even more vicious than the poisoned spears. Whenever it hit a part of the starship, it would immediately burn a large hole in the steel plate. With both the ground and the sky attacking, it would be strange if the starship could fly out. It would be better to land and fight to the death with these monsters. As soon as the starship landed on the ground, the monkeys immediately swarmed over and drowned the starship. They smashed and hammered everywhere, a typical tactic of plundering the world-devouring insects sea. There were only 40 to 50 people left on the ship. Everyone knew that the odds were stacked against them. The moment the door to the rescue port was opened, everyone raised their photoelectric guns and opened fire. The group of monkeys fell one by one. However, this firepower couldn't last for too long. In just a minute, 3 to 5 monkeys approached. They grabbed a staff member and started to bite and beat her. That person was a woman. In the blink of an eye, her neck was bitten off. The monkeys behind her swarmed over. The woman was completely drowned out in her screams. Ding Meng sighed helplessly. In this kind of cruel battle, personal strength was very important. He had no time to care about other things. It was almost impossible to protect everyone. Izendel also sighed. I heard the seniors say how cruel the world-devouring war is. I didn't believe it before. Today, I finally saw it for myself. Ding Meng said, this scale is considered small. These are all low-level warriors of the world-devouring army. If a real army of monsters attacked together, no matter how powerful a person was, they wouldn't be able to withstand it. Izendel agreed. She could already imagine a scene. In the deep space, a large Federation fleet encountered hundreds of thousands of demons and flying dragons. Even if they used all their firepower, they wouldn't be able to withstand such a wave of death. In less than 5 minutes after the rescue port was opened, the dozens of people were all eaten up. Not even a trace of them was left. Izendale immediately activated her pink mixed essence umbrella as a shield. At the same time, she expanded the scale of the shield by several times. Then, she circulated the ice element power evenly on the surface of the shield. Ding Meng also activated his diamond shield. However, Ding Meng's shield was spinning with a fiery red heat source. You go in front, Ding Meng said in a low voice. Izendel rolled her eyes at him. Why should I be the shield? Ding Meng said, use the cold winter ice dust storm to freeze these monsters and reduce the consumption. Izendel immediately understood his intention. She secretly activated her martial arts. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew in the night sky. Pieces of ice dust fell from the sky, covering a large area. These monkey monsters were turned into ice sculptures as soon as they rushed over. Although the low-level warriors couldn't pose a substantial threat to battle saints like Ding Meng, Izendel was still secretly shocked. The monkeys were charging forward without fear of death. Slowly, with the two of them as the center, a large ice ball with a diameter of hundreds of meters was built in just a few minutes. If this consumption continued for a day and a night, she would die of exhaustion sooner or later. Ding Meng quickly rose vertically from the inside of the ice ball. After summoning the wings of light, he broke through the ice and flew to the top of the ice ball. Looking around, he was still surrounded by a black tide. The monkeys began to climb the ice ball. Their intention was obvious. These monsters wanted to bite him to death. With this advantageous terrain, Ding Meng spread his hands. A fiery red light pillar nearly 200 meters long shot out from his palms. This was the heat essence. Ding Meng spun and shot it out in all directions. This was even more powerful than a railgun. Wherever the light pillar passed, monsters, plants, and even the poisonous carpet on the ground were all turned into fine powder. Black smoke rose from the entire rainforest, forming large patches of black fog that didn't disperse. This attack had a rather powerful deterrent effect. In an instant, the area within a radius of 200 meters was roasted into an empty space. Although there were still monkeys behind, they were no longer as aggressive as before. It seemed that these low-level monsters also had the intelligence of a demonic clan. At the very least, they knew the difference between life and death. Isendale raised her head and shouted, "If you have fun killing up there, can you get me out too?" She actually had a way to go up, but she knew that Ding Meng practiced applied telekinesis. This way, it would be more convenient for him to ascend. "Remove your shield." Ding Meng raised one of his palms, and Isendale quickly flew up. After flying to the top, Ding Meng hugged her and brought her into the diamond shield. She then realized that Ding Meng's diamond shield not only had an amazing amount of origin energy, but it also couldn't penetrate the shield. Clearly, this was the purification effect of the divine light. Ding Meng held Isendale's slender waist with one hand and swept his right hand around a few times. The monsters were scattered, but the black fog in the air became thicker. Relying on this terrain, no matter how many low-level monsters like pterosaurs and monkeys there were, they would all die. This guy's strength was probably not as simple as a wargod's, right? Isendale thought to herself. Just as she thought this, she suddenly realized that Ding Meng's left hand was very naughty. It was rubbing her waist through her clothes. Isendale turned her head and rolled her eyes at him. "I didn't expect you to be able to multitask." Ding Meng was so engrossed in killing the monsters that he didn't pay attention to her. Isendale stared at him coldly. "It seems that the nickname Alloy Demon King isn't just for show. By the way, are people so direct these days? They don't talk and just touch?" "Ahem." Ding Meng was a little embarrassed. "It feels good. I couldn't help it." Isendale rolled her eyes at him again, but she didn't dare to push his hand away. If she did, she might fall down. However, Ding Meng had already wiped out most of the monsters and poison carpet. Isendale asked again, "Why are there so many monsters here?" Ding Meng then said seriously, "We used too much energy to break into the starship just now. It has already alerted the demon generals here. Plus, these monsters aren't real monsters." Isendale was surprised. "You killed so many of them, but they aren't monsters?" Ding Meng looked at the black fog in the distance. "They are all transformed by the demon race. Once they are attacked, they will return to their original form. Only by destroying their immortal apertures can they be completely killed." He knew that Isendale wouldn't understand if he explained this to her, so he pointed into the distance. "You will see it soon." Sure enough, the black fog that had been condensed in the air suddenly erupted with a very strong aura. This aura was not something that the small monsters could compare to. A shadow suddenly floated out of the black fog. It was a standing tiger with black fur. It had the basic characteristics of a human, just like the netherworld Demonis. However, it hadn't cultivated a real human immortal aperture because its face was blank and the wings on its back were slightly narrow. The tiger suddenly let out a series of strange squeaks. Ding Meng smiled. "Sure enough." Isendale was curious. "What is it saying?" Ding Meng said. "It just sensed our energy and thought that we were suitable targets to devour, so it came to kill us." The tiger's voice changed again, this time into human language. "It really is a high-level human origin ability user. The heavens are really helping me. This time I can finally evolve." Ding Meng said, "Your disciples and grand-disciples have all been killed. Do you think that you can defeat me just because you have an immortal aperture?" The tiger was angry. "Ignorant human. My immortal aperture is enough to kill you human generals." Ding Meng's eyelids drooped. "I'm curious. Thousand Sails Star has always been a border planet. You actually have the guts to hide here. Do you really think that the Federation fleet can't find you?" The tiger raised its head and laughed. "Ha ha ha ha, ignorant junior. I was sent by the sect master. What do I have to fear from a small planet like Thousand Sails Star?" Ding Meng and Isendale looked at each other. This guy was so arrogant. It was very thought-provoking. Even a predatory sect master like Ling Yin wouldn't dare to hide on Thousand Sails Star so openly. This guy was just a demon general. Where did he get the guts to do so? Ding Meng said in a low voice, "Who is your sect master?" The tiger said, "You will know when I devour you." As soon as it finished speaking, It flapped its wings and shot over like an arrow. Isendale sneered. Demon King, you don't have to do anything. Let me deal with this arrogant thing. Chapter 7:18. Isendale's confidence was based on the fact that she was immune to toxins. The tiger slapped her in midair, and a thick, green, fan-shaped wind appeared in the air. After the battle with the energy crystals, everyone now had a preliminary understanding of the people in the devouring world. Their toxins were particularly powerful. If you were immune to toxins, then the source energy of these monsters was nothing to be afraid of. Isendale's mixed element umbrella opened again. She had learned the essence of Ding Meng's technique. She stood still, and when the wind came, the shield rotated slightly, and the wind was immediately dissipated. When the tiger slapped her a second time, Isendale's arm suddenly grew several meters long, and her 5 fingers formed a claw. With a crisp sound, the tiger howled and flew back, green blood splattering in the air. When he steadied himself, he found that there were 5 bloody holes in his chest. It was clear that Isendale's finger strength was very strong. You monster! You can even change shape. The tiger was shocked. Isendale sneered. Hee, you overestimate yourself. The tiger raised his head and roared. He flapped his wings and flew over again. This time, he didn't slap her. Instead, he opened his mouth and spat out black mucus. Then, he formed 2 claws and pounced at his opponent. His aura also increased by a lot. He was using his unique skill, and Isendale couldn't deal with it the same way. She waved her hand, and a sky-blue icicle as thick as an arm flew toward the black mucus. Her ice source energy wasn't just a single energy source. The icicle began to spin as soon as it touched the mucus. It felt like a rotating shield that absorbed the toxins. Moreover, it was even more powerful and showed no signs of slowing down. Few human origin ability users could deal with the strange toxins in the devouring world so easily. When the tiger saw the icicle flying toward him, he quickly flew to the left to dodge. It was fine if he didn't dodge, but once he dodged, he was in trouble. In the tiger's vision, there was only Ding Meng left on the iceberg. When he felt that something was wrong, Isendale had already appeared above his head like a ghost. She hit him in the head with one hand and knocked him down. Then, Isendale waved her hand again, and another dark blue icicle flew down like a missile. This time, it was impossible to dodge. With a muffled sound, the sharp icicle pierced the tiger's lower abdomen and nailed him to the iceberg. His body spread out and was covered in a thin layer of white ice. His aura instantly weakened by more than half. Of course, it wasn't because he was too weak. It was mainly because he was unlucky to have met Ding Meng and Isendale, who were old monsters of origin energy. The gap between a demon general and a war god was huge. You guys. The tiger's pupils were already glowing white. It looked like he couldn't make it. Hee. Isendale landed and looked at him maliciously. You dare to eat people with such little strength? Let me send you on your way. She was just about to attack when Ding Meng flew down and squatted in front of the tiger. It's not easy to evolve into a demon general. If your soul is destroyed, you won't even be able to return to the devouring world. At this time, the tiger's limbs had already begun to change. His flesh and blood gradually rotted, turning into liquid venom that was half flesh and half pus. Ding Meng said in a low voice, "Which sect in the devouring world are you from?" The tiger laughed coldly. "Shameless human, don't even think about getting any information about my sect master." Ding Meng thought for a moment and said, "If you're not from the Sevenfold Mountain clan, then I'll have to send you on your way." The tiger spat disdainfully. "Tui, the Sevenfold Mountain clan? What is that? It's far inferior to my sect." Ding Meng looked at him with interest. "It sounds like your sect is quite famous. There are only a few major sects in the devouring world that are comparable to the Sevenfold Mountain clan. Sacred Realm, Spirit Mountain, Immortal Shadow, and Spectre. It seems that your use of energy transformation is quite good. You're from the Spectre family, right? These 4 sects were quite famous in the devouring world, just like the Federation's glorious star rainbow and the Empire's apocalypse crimson moon. They called themselves the 4 great immortal sects. Of course, Leng Yin had transmitted this information to Ding Meng earlier. The devouring world was very different from the Federal Empire's conglomerate. Although the cultivation of origin energy seemed to be very varied, it was still very much the same. Origin energy formed the origin gave birth to the cultivation technique, and the cultivation technique transformed into martial art. The general principles were similar. However, the sects of the devouring world were different. The sacred domain was good at refining origin power, which was a true orthodox sect in the devouring world. The spirit mountain was mainly good at forging formations and magic treasures. The immortal sect had a unique demonic cultivation method. The demon shadow was unique in terms of poison and resources. In short, the devouring world was truly diverse and strange. It had all kinds of things. This was also the reason why it was difficult to unite the devouring world. The problem was that ordinary humans definitely wouldn't know about this. As such, the tiger looked at Ding Meng in shock. He didn't expect Ding Meng to know about this. "Who are you?" Ding Meng calmly said, "You're about to die. If you answer my questions honestly, you might be able to keep your life." In your dreams. The tiger was obviously the stubborn type. He simply closed his eyes and waited for death. Ding Meng sighed helplessly and slowly stood up. There was no need for him or Isendale to attack this demonic general. It would completely turn into pus in at most 5 minutes. Isendale also waved her hand to retrieve her ice energy. The huge iceberg slowly melted. If it weren't for the damaged carrier, no one would believe what had just happened in the open space. When the demonic general completely turned into a pool of venom, the poisonous plants around gradually withered and died. The entire land returned to its original Gobi topography. Even the haze in the sky faded away, and hazy starlight could be vaguely seen. Isendale walked over. "Why are you asking about this monster sect?" Ding Meng said, "This guy can use things like diamond cultivation techniques to charm Hu Biao and the others into betraying humans. Do you think it's a coincidence?" Isendale said hesitantly, "The devouring world sect wants to cause trouble on Thousand Sails Star?" Ding Meng sighed. "I'm afraid it's not as simple as that. He said he was sent by their sect leader. It's probably been a while. He wants to slowly take over Thousand Sails Star. Why do you think he's making preparations?" Isendale immediately understood what he meant. Even if the devouring world sect has the guts, their leader isn't a fool, right? Does he really think that the Federation's patrol fleet can't detect this place? Ding Meng said, "If he can hide here, doesn't he have a backup plan?" Isendale's expression changed. "You mean we should just wait here?" Ding Meng suddenly raised his head and let out a long breath. "No need to wait. They're already here." Following his gaze, Isendale also saw a white dot flashing in the night sky. If she was distracted for a moment, she might have thought it was starlight. However, Isendale was also very experienced. She immediately recognized that it wasn't a monster from the devouring world sect, but a flying unit of the Federation. "It's a spaceship!" Isendale exclaimed in surprise. Ding Meng's face darkened and he didn't answer. He only secretly restrained his origin energy aura. It was obvious that he didn't want to expose himself. Isendale obviously noticed this too. "What's wrong? You don't seem very happy." Ding Meng sighed. The commotion here was so big. The spaceship's radar must have detected it. Isendale said, "Isn't that good? If it's a patrol fleet spaceship, then we'll have hope of returning to the Federation." Her mouth was indeed a jinx. The spaceship was obviously coming for these coordinates. After the altitude decreased, both of them could clearly see that it was a thousand-eye spaceship. Its appearance was similar to a swordfish, but its scale was much smaller. This was a small reconnaissance spaceship of the Saint Federation. Its detection function was very advanced, not inferior to the Empire's Songqing. It served in all kinds of patrol fleets. Sure enough, after the thousand-eyed spaceship came to a stop, Ding Meng saw the extremely obvious symbol of the Federation's divine sword on the hull of the spaceship. 5 fully armed soldiers walked down from the connecting cabin. The auras of these 5 people were not strong, but they were carrying various detection equipment in their hands. They must have detected the movement here during their patrol. Izendale had already run over. Hey, you're just in time. The 5 soldiers were shocked, but after seeing who it was, the leader of the soldiers ordered his companions to put down their guns. Don't mess around. This is a Federation origin energy user. We're on the same side. Judging from the soldier's epaulets, he was a sergeant. The sergeant looked very friendly. Hello, miss. There was a strong energy fluctuation here just now. Was it you? Izendale had to briefly describe what had just happened. The sergeant nodded thoughtfully. I see. No wonder the radar was alerting us. We were also on a patrol and happened to be near the Zirital star field. That's why we rushed over immediately. Guys, get ready to work and send the information back to the fleet. The other 4 soldiers began to scan the ground with large and small instruments. Ding Meng knew that this was the usual practice of the patrol fleet. If they found anything unusual, they had to use the scanner to record it and send it back to the military database for analysis. Can I take your spaceship back to your fleet? Izendale explained patiently. I was stranded on Thousand Sails Star in an accident. The sergeant was obviously very experienced in dealing with this kind of situation. Miss, if you don't mind, please stand still. I need to verify your identity. If you're a citizen of the Federation, there won't be any problem. Then, he raised his wristwatch and generated a miniature screen. After a wave-like green ray scanned Izendale, the database quickly displayed her image and various information. The sergeant's expression suddenly changed, and his attitude became respectful. So it's Miss Izendale. Sorry for the disrespect. Izendale looked pleased. She turned her head and called out to Ding Meng in the distance. Let's go. We can go back now. Ding Meng, who was hiding in the darkness of the stone mountain, said coldly, Wait, which Federation military patrol fleet do you belong to? Chapter 719. Hearing Ding Meng's voice, the sergeant was a little unhappy. Can't you see such an obvious spaceship and logo? However, he did not show it on his face. He patiently explained, Hello, sir. If you are a citizen of the Federation, you can naturally exercise your rights. You can take a military ship back to the Federation, but you have to verify your identity first. Ding Meng waved his hand and said, Forget it. I don't plan to leave. The sergeant was stunned. How could there be such a strange person who did not want to go back to the Zeta 2 star zone? However, on second thought, it was normal. If he could kill a demon general, he must be at least a warlord. It would not be difficult for him to survive on a border planet like this. The sergeant was guessing, but Izendale clearly understood Ding Meng's careful thoughts. First, he was worried about Gu Zi and his sister. Second, he was worried about exposing his location. Ding Meng had killed so many masters of the Starbow Group, and the Starbow Group was worried that they could not find him. If they really verified his identity now, they would undoubtedly sell their location. After all, the Starbow Group had a great influence in the military. You really don't want to leave? Izendale asked hesitantly. Ding Meng said lightly, You can go. Izendale was silent. She really wanted to go back to the Federation as soon as possible. She was in a hurry, but she was reluctant to leave. As for why, specifically speaking, it was quite complicated. His close relationship with Ding Meng, his good impression of Eco, and the small amount of divine light energy he had obtained during this period of time, all sorts of factors were involved. Together, there was a faint feeling of parting. Let's go together. Izendale's tone sounded like she was begging. Ding Meng sighed and shook his head. It's okay. You can go. I have other plans here. Isendale also sighed. How about this? I will go back first and then find a ship to take you, Guzi, and Yeetzi away together. What do you think? Her eyes were a little gloomy, but there was also some anticipation. Ding Meng pondered for a long time before saying, Okay. Isendale's eyes immediately brightened, and her tone became excited. Then you must wait for me here, Demon King. Ding Meng could not help but nod with a smile. The sergeant was surprised. This was the first time he had seen Isendale in person. It was said that Miss Isendale's whereabouts were unpredictable. She was famous on the goddess list and warrior list, but no one could get close to her. However, it seemed that the relationship between the two of them was not as simple as ordinary friends. The sergeant was also very curious about Ding Meng. This person was young and didn't look very good. He looked like he had rolled around in the mud, but Miss Eisen seemed to think highly of him. With the urge to gossip, the sergeant quietly turned on the silent shooting function on his wristwatch and took a picture of Ding Meng. Although he couldn't directly scan it due to the law enforcement process, he would be able to find out who this person was after comparing it with the database. The Thousand Eye spaceship quickly tightened its landing gear, started its engine, and slowly lifted off. The cockpit of the spaceship was very small. The 5 soldiers returned to their posts and began to work. Isendale wandered around the main control panel. In fact, this was the sergeant's preferential treatment for her. After all, the Rainbow family was very famous in the Federation, and Miss Isendale's status was also very prominent. If it were someone else, they would definitely be sent to the lounge. It was impossible for her to stay in the cockpit. The sergeant entered the information collected by the scanner into the screen and then uploaded it to the military's intranet system. Then he entered Ding Meng's picture, and the database quickly gave him detailed information about Ding Meng in the Federation. The public information about Ding Meng in the Federation's administration was very limited. It only showed that he had graduated from Starlight University and was blank after that. However, some people could still see the clues. The sergeant was a little surprised. Miss Isendale, is this Mr. Ting your friend? Isendale glanced at the screen. Yes, he is indeed my friend. The sergeant's tone was full of envy. Mr. Ting is very young. He graduated first in Starlight University at the age of 21. This meant that Ding Meng was already a combat master-level origin ability user at the age of 21. Now that 11 years had passed, such a talented person would most likely be a warlord-level or even a warlord-level expert. No wonder Miss Eisen took a liking to him as a friend. It was really a case of dragons meeting dragons and phoenixes meeting phoenixes. A friend made by a mouse could only crawl into a hole. Of course, if he knew Ding Meng's true level now, he would probably be scared to death. At this time, countless rays automatically fell from the ceiling of the cockpit. The remote real-time transmission next to the main control panel was combining images. The sergeant and his 4 subordinates immediately stood up and straightened their back. It seemed that the images of the high-ranking members of the patrol fleet had been transmitted. Sure enough, the person who was transmitted in was an officer in a neat uniform. He didn't look young. His rank was major, which was usually the commander of the fleet. The sergeant and the others immediately saluted. Sir. The major nodded slowly. Sergeant Zhangzhen, thank you for your hard work. The fleet has received the information you sent back. According to Commander Lu Ting's instructions, a demon general has appeared on Thousand Sails planet. We will send an advance team to clean up and investigate thoroughly. Your mission has been completed. Return immediately. The sergeant saluted again. Roger. The major then turned his gaze to Isendale. Miss Isendale, hello. This is the Holy Grail Federation's patrol fleet number GT003NT08688K in the Northern Horizon. I'm Mu Chun, the adjutant of the fleet. According to Commander Lu Ting's instructions, we will send the Skywalker starship to welcome you back. Please don't worry. The meaning of these words was obvious. The patrol fleet had received the information from Zhang Zhen and immediately notified the Rainbow family. The Rainbow family must have contacted the military and must send their young lady back safely. Izendale nodded. Thank you, Commander Mu. You're welcome. Mu Chen replied neither humbly nor arrogantly. I wish you a pleasant return. Goodbye. Izendale thought this was just a small interlude, but 10 minutes later, a remote instant message came in from the cockpit. Seeing the colorful light on the screen, Zhang Zhen and the others' expressions changed. They stood up again with their heads held high. It was obvious that the person who had come this time was of a higher rank. After the mirror image was formed, a young and handsome officer appeared beside the control panel. Although he was young, the insignia on his chest showed that he was a major general. A small reconnaissance ship had actually alarmed a major general. This was simply a big deal. Zhang Zhen and the others saluted respectfully. Sir. However, the major general ignored them and looked directly at Izendale. Miss Izendale, how have you been? Is everything okay? Izendale could not help but ask in surprise, how did you know I was here? This was none other than Haodong, a military bigshot among the many pursuers of the transit string. Haodong smiled happily. It's simple. The patrol fleets with the serial number GT are all under my command. This is a military secret, but you're not an outsider, so it's okay if you know. Looking at Haodong's happy smile, Izendale had a bad feeling. She knew this person. His background aside, everyone in the Federation knew that Haodong was a loyal pursuer of the transit string. Miss Izendale, the whole world is looking for you now. I didn't expect you to go to the Zeta 2 star system. Your grandpa was very angry when he found out that you went to the Fertile Chalk system. Then you mysteriously disappeared from there. The pressure from your family is on the military. Fortunately, you're safe. Haodong explained casually. Izendale said calmly, Of course I'm fine. Haodong stared at her for a while and finally asked, Where's Ding Meng? Izendale said, I don't know. Haodong looked at her with a faint smile. That's not a smart lie. Izendale was puzzled. You know Ding Meng? Haodong sighed. I didn't know him at first, but now it's hard not to know him. This kid caused such a big incident in the Fertile Chalk system. Do you know how many people are looking for him now? There are more people looking for him than for you. Izendale said coldly. He doesn't seem to have anything to do with you, does he? Haodong said, He does have nothing to do with me, but I was asked by someone to look for information. Izendale said, Unfortunately, you asked the wrong person. Haodong smiled. You seem to be worried about him. Izendale sneered. Am I? Haodong waved his hand. Forget it. I'll just look for you. Someone wants to talk to you. The transit line changed again, and the human figure immediately changed into another person. This person was wearing a uniform, was tall, and had a bright appearance. Izendale was shocked again. Xing Xian. The transit string always had a bright smile on his face. Dai, long time no see. How have you been? Izendale finally knew that things were not good. The transit string was connected to her, which meant that the Starry Rainbow Group had found out about Ding Meng's general whereabouts. No wonder Ding Meng had refused to come on board. He must have expected this. She had to admit that Ding Meng was cautious and thoughtful. However, Izendale also felt a wave of regret. If she had not insisted on returning to the Federation, the information that Ding Meng was on Thousand Sails Star would not have been exposed. In the end, she had unintentionally sold out Ding Meng. I'm not good, Izendale said unhappily. The transit string was a little surprised. Izendale pondered and said, Chi-Chi must be looking for Ding Meng all over the world right now, right? The transit string gave a strange smile. What does that have to do with me? Do you really think I would tell my sister about Ding Meng? You think too much. This time, it was Izendale's turn to be stunned. She had interacted with the three Ling sisters quite a bit. She knew that the transit string was definitely not the kind of person who liked to lie and pretend to be strange. If she said so, then she must have done so. The transit string explained, "After you went missing in the fertile chalk system, Uncle was very worried and asked everyone to help him find out. I just received a call from Haodong, so I came to confirm that you're okay. Of course, my sister is indeed looking for Ding Meng, but I'm not so free as to tell her about Ding Meng. This is not important to her." Isendale could not help but sneer. Then what is the most important news to her? The transit string stopped smiling and said meaningfully, "The exact location of Ding Meng is the most important news to other people." As soon as this was said, Isendale immediately smelled a strong conspiracy. Chapter 720. Who are they? Isendale asked. The transit string said, "You don't have to worry about that." Isendale said, "Zingstring, are you deliberately planning to deal with Ding Meng?" The transit string smiled again. Dai, let me put it this way. I have never thought of dealing with Ding Meng. My attitude is clear enough, right? Ding Meng killed so many battle saints of the Starry Rainbow Corporation. Elder Wu was killed by him. I saw it with my own eyes. I don't believe that you will do nothing about it, Isendale said suspiciously. I know. The transit string sighed slightly. Uncle Wu and Third Aunt are very good to me. I also see them as family. However, I always feel that fighting and killing is not the right way to solve problems. Isendale said, "Then what do you want?" The transit string said, "Nothing else. As a friend, I just want you to return safely. Now that a demon general has appeared on Thousand Sails Star, if my guess is correct, it will not be long before that place becomes a huge whirlpool. No matter who gets sucked in, it will be difficult to escape unscathed." Isendale fell silent. She smelled a huge danger signal from the transit string's words. The third daughter of the Ling family was not the same as Ling Xingqi. She never acted according to common sense, but when she did, it was always earth-shattering. Isendale believed that the transit string was not lying, but she definitely did not believe that the transit string would sit by and do nothing. The remote instant message quickly disappeared. The cockpit was strangely quiet. Zhang Zhen and the other four stood there numbly. Not only had so many important people suddenly come, but the content of the conversation between Isendale and the transit string was enough to make them tremble in fear. It turned out that the young man with the surname Ding was an extremely powerful warrior who could kill several battle saints of the Starry Rainbow group. He was a man standing at the top of the food chain. No wonder Miss Isendale favored him. After a long time, Zhang Zhen said with difficulty, "Miss Isendale." Isendale's face suddenly darkened. "Go back." Zhang Zhen and the others were at a loss. "Go back? Where are you going?" Isendale's expression was ugly. "Return to Thousand Sails Star, now, immediately." Zhang Zhen forced a smile. "Miss Eisen, please don't joke with us." "I'm not kidding." Isendale's expression was unusually calm. "I want you to turn around and go back the way you came." Zhang Zhen's face also became serious. "I'm really sorry, Miss Eisen. I didn't receive orders from the commanding officer. I have no right to change the route. We can't bear the responsibility because this is a military order." "Did I ask you to take responsibility?" Isendale stared at him fiercely. Zhang Zhen had a difficult look on his face. "Miss Eisen, you are born in a wealthy family and are magnanimous. Please don't make things difficult for us." Isendale took a deep breath and flashed back to her original position, leaving several afterimages in the cockpit. With a series of dull thuds, Zhang Zhen and the other four fell to the ground one after another. Isendale didn't go all out. These people were soldiers of the Federation military. They weren't afraid that she was the young lady of the Rainbow family. Killing soldiers for no reason was not a small crime. After knocking out the 5 people, Isendale immediately began to change the route on the control panel. At the same time, she turned off the military's internal communication channel. What she needed to do now was to return to Thousand Sails Star, pick up Ding Meng and the Guzi siblings, and escape quickly. She could basically confirm two things now. The first was that the military would definitely send a fleet to sweep Thousand Sails Star because there were already realm devourers here. The second was that a large number of masters from the Starbow group would definitely come as soon as possible, and their target was Ding Meng. Furthermore, with the good relationship between the Starbow group and the military, Haodong's subordinates would definitely participate. No matter how strong Ding Meng was, in the face of such a powerful force, he should understand what it means to be able to kill an elephant with a large number of ants. Bootlickers really don't deserve a good death. Isendale couldn't help but curse. At the same time, in the depths of the universe, a spectacular special-class patrol fleet was quietly floating in space. This fleet was extremely large, with more than 300 starships of various types. The leading mothership was the famous Golden Eagle-class patrol starship. At this moment, the command hall of the mothership was brightly lit. A group of important military personnel gathered around the control panel. Among them was a blonde beauty wearing a colonel's uniform. She stood in the crowd with an imposing aura. She was the commander-in-chief of the patrol fleet numbered GT-003-NT-08688K, Lu Ting. She looked young, but she was actually over 200 years old. She had participated in the Realm Devourer War 100 years ago. Because of her rich experience and strength, she was entrusted with the heavy responsibility of guarding the Northern Horizon star system and patrolling the Zirital star system. She was quite a powerful character. At this moment, a communications officer kept reporting the latest news. Sir, we just received a joint notice from the Federation's Department of Defense, Department of Police, and Department of Intelligence. The presence of a realm devourer on Thousand Sails Star is of great importance. The Congress wants us to investigate thoroughly and form a written report. Lu Ting slightly raised her eyebrows. The Department of Defense is fine, but what about the Department of Police and Department of Intelligence? According to the latest report from the Department of Police, a Class A felon of the Federation is hiding on Thousand Sails Star. His name is Ding Meng, and he was stranded on Thousand Sails Star with Miss Eisen. A Class A felon? Lu Ting frowned even harder. The Federation hasn't had a felon of this level for many years. What did he do? According to the Department of Intelligence, Ding Meng was involved with the forces in outer space and colluded with the military of the Norse Empire. He killed 17 battle saints of the Star Rainbow Group in the Wakeo star system. This action not only damaged the national defense of the Federation, but it is also a felony murder. The Congress has determined that he is a Class A felon. There was a strange silence in the command hall. The group of officers felt their scalps go numb. Killing 17 battle saints, what kind of terrifying concept was this? Looking at the entire Federation, the number of people who could do this probably didn't exceed 2 digits, right? Only those old fellows who had been in seclusion for many years and hadn't been in the public eye for a long time could do it. Mu Chen couldn't help but sigh. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Lu Ting sneered. It's just that the Star Rainbow Group suffered a loss and put pressure on the Federation government. They can't wait to rope in this kind of talent, but they just have to label him as a felon. Mu Chen explained, Sir, the Star Rainbow Group has always complied with the military's requests. This is reasonable. It's just an exchange of benefits. Lu Ting's expression was ugly. Does Officer Haodong have any instructions? The communications soldier carefully replied, Yes. Lu Ting's face darkened. Speak. The communications soldier said, Officer Haodong has ordered that because our unit is the closest to the Zirital star system, the fleet should be prepared to head to Thousand Sails Star to capture the culprit. Persuasion is the main goal, and force is the secondary goal. It would be best if the culprit could surrender on his own. Lu Ting's expression was cold. She didn't say anything for a long time, and the others didn't dare to say anything either. This big sister was famous for her violent temper. She had already restrained herself quite a bit by not acting up after receiving this order. However, everyone knew that the Star Rainbow Group had definitely come into conflict with Ding Meng. If they could come into conflict with a behemoth like the Star Rainbow Group, it could only be a conflict of interest. In the end, more than 10 battle saints had died. The Star Rainbow Group had no way to deal with them, so they had no choice but to rely on the Federation's higher-ups to put pressure on them. This pressure fell on the military, and that little bootlicker Haodong just so happened to be the spare tire of the transit string. As such, this order had been issued. This order was quite interesting. Persuasion is the main goal, meant that they knew that Ding Meng was an old origin energy monster and didn't dare to use force. They only dared to brag. Force is the secondary goal was even more hilarious. Who on this fleet dared to say that they could exterminate a battle saint origin energy expert? Of course, the military also had origin energy experts, but they weren't used to capture criminals. Those who had performed meritorious deeds were used to protect the country. If they couldn't be asked to come out, they wouldn't be mobilized so easily. As for forcing the culprit to surrender on his own, everyone could only chuckle. Anyone who could do such a thing would definitely be a genius in the marketing world. As such, this order could only be carefully considered by the commander himself. Lu Ting muttered to herself for a moment before saying, "Has the Star Rainbow Group made a move?" Mu Chen understood and immediately replied, "There hasn't been any movement from the Star Rainbow Group." Lu Ting was furious. They want to reap the fruits of their labor, but they aren't doing anything. How can there be such a good thing in the world? Are they trying to send us to our deaths and enjoy their arrival? Mu Chen helplessly said, "There's also another piece of news. Ding Meng's identity is the security secretary of the president of the Xing Hao Group's Blue Moon branch. The Xing Hao Group has already raised a serious objection to this matter to the Federation's upper echelons. Currently, they have already received a notice from the Xing Hao Group's Mr. Yu Tianlin. The Xing Hao Group's Blue Moon branch has already sent a delegation to meet up with us." Lu Ting was shocked. There's such a thing? It seems like the Xing Hao Group and the Star Rainbow Group have a major conflict. Mu Chen explained, "This delegation is nominally led by the Xing Hao Group's Yuanjie, but in reality, I saw Yu Wenshu's name on the list." Yu Wenshu? Lu Ting was even more shocked. "Are you sure it's that Yu Wenshu?" Mu Chen smiled bitterly. "There are many people in the Holy Grail Federation with the same name, but there's only one person with this name who's from the Xing Hao Group." Lu Ting seemed to suck in a breath of cold air. My goodness, these two families really don't care about the situation. What kind of trouble did this Ding Meng cause? As she spoke, she paced back and forth in the hall as if she was deep in thought. "Don't you think this is very interesting? The Star Rainbow Group suffered a loss, but they didn't send anyone. Instead, the Xing Hao Group sent someone, and it was a big guy. Mu Chen, go and investigate what kind of conflict did that Ding Meng have with the Star Rainbow Group in the Fertile Chalk star system?" Mu Chen spread his hands and said, "I've already checked. I couldn't find anything at all. The database shows that it's classified as a high-level secret. We don't have enough authority." At this time, the communications officer began to speak again. "Sir, the scouting ship carrying Miss Eisen suddenly lost contact with us. The ship automatically turned off the signal and cut off the communication channel. The scouting system captured that it's returning to Thousand Sails Star. Something really did happen." Lu Ting's face darkened. "Pass down my order. Inform the Vanguard fleet that has already set off. After arriving at Thousand Sails Star, we'll split into two groups according to the information we have. One group will head to the site of the accident to search for clues about the Demon General and kill all monsters below the Demon General level. The other group will search for Miss Eisen's whereabouts and find out where Ding Meng is." "Yes, ma'am, sir." "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.